Hello, extra time.
They point to the league not to get a hoy because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read it, just laugh at you.
The single club, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit and the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Kenny then to manage the Irish team.
Hello and welcome to the new season of the extratime.com podcast. I'm your host Luke Jordan. Delighted to say that Macdara Ferris alongside me again. Macdara, how are you?
I'm very good, Luke. How are you getting on? Good to see you and hear you again now that the season is only a couple of days away.
Yeah, and we're back. It's hard to believe the long off season's over.
Yeah, Christmas provides a nice little break and then suddenly you find yourself standing freezing cold on a sideline watching pre-season friendly. You came all enthusiastic and then you were going, why did I come out here? But then the new league campaign starts on Friday or Saturday for Sligo Rovers and Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, and I have to say it's when it starts building up and you're kind of looking at the fixture list and you just kind of get that little bit of buzz now, especially as we're recording here on Monday night and you're kind of saying just 4 more sleeps now to the first game. You're really getting you're kind of logging your calendar there. Look, we'll get going. I'm delighted to have Stephen, Kavanagh, Andrew, Dempsey with us along as well. Lads, how are we?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Happy to be back for the new season.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, good to be on again after a couple of years out.
Yeah, we brought you back in for the cold, Andrew.
That's it.
Look, we'll start with the Dublin teams first on our preview show, and I suppose there's nowhere else to start but Shamrock Rovers. Macdara, you wrote a nice little piece there that came out today on Shamrock Rovers. So where does it lie this season for them? Yeah,
we've been doing season previews I'm trying to get most of the clubs. So I did the Shamrock Rovers one over the weekend. Maybe the difference is the players that Stephen Bradley has brought in. He's four new players, 3 of them on loan, and Rovers have generally steered away from loan deals, but they're all season-long loans, and Trevor Clark is with an option to stay. And Marcus Poom is one of the other Estonian international, and Johnny Keaney been the other. But they're there for the full season, so they can't be recalled during the year. And I think that's they didn't want that kind of destabilization factor. And then Liam Burt is the other new signing. And I had looked at his stats from last season. So he was the player with the third most number of shots in the Premier Division, 3.6 per 90 minutes, according to iScout. And he also had the second highest number of dribbles. It was 8.4 per 90 minutes. And that's what Stephen Bradley looks like he's tried to do, is to bring in maybe something a little bit different in the likes of Liam Burt. Real attacking option, maybe something that they don't quite have. I think Neil Farage is something different. And then Johnny Keaney did so well with Sligo Rovers in 2021. He got it was 11 league goals, and he also scored in Europe as well. We've talked before about the age profile of that Shamrock Rovers squad. So particularly up number 9, you had Rory Gaffney, who was excellent last season, player of the year, and Aaron Green, both 33 years old. So bringing someone in like Johnny Keaney, kind of dropping the age profile, and so I kind of had him as the kind of the key player, mainly because I didn't just want to write about Jack Byrne. Obviously, Byrne is the key player with Rovers, but something a little bit different that Rovers have done with their signings. And then for the one to watch, I put Justin Ferris, and it's more one to watch while he's here in the league, because really, as soon as he turned 18 in January, and I think his phone was hopping as soon as he turned 18. The English clubs could now, or the British clubs could bring him over. So he was over with Spurs, kind of training. They were having a look at him, and Rovers fans were busy refreshing Twitter on the 31st of January, waiting for midnight to come and see, was he going to stay? Was Ferris going to go? But actually, so he's committed to Rovers, certainly to the middle of the season now, because the transfer window is closed. But he's very, very well regarded, and he played way more European games for Rovers than he did in the league. So I think for Shamrock Rovers fans, or even anyone in the league, if they're going to see a game with Rovers, I think they'll probably see a fair bit of Ferris probably before he goes over to the UK, if he doesn't travel to Europe, continental Europe maybe.
Yeah, looking at the signings in particular, the incomings, they look quite strategic. I mean, in particular, Johnny Keaney one, that's kind of probably the one issue with Shamrock Rovers the past 3 to 4 seasons has been that kind of issue of down the centre forward, not enough goals from that kind of region. Johnny Kenny seems to be quite a player that could fill in that gap. He's young as well compared to the two strikers. Even looking at interesting side of Trevor Clark, that left wing back position maybe it was a little bit say short of Ferris on the right. So again, quite strategic signings.
Yeah, and they haven't, like, there's only really been kind of, it's four new signings. They let a number of players go. There's no what I call regretted losses. Obviously, they'd love to hang on to Andy Lyons, who's gone on and has done well. As he's gone with Blackpool, scoring goals now. But Chris McCann has gone again. One of the players on the older end, but they've. Bradley has shaped that squad over a number of years, so it's tinkering is the wrong thing, but I think strategic is a good thing. The squad was stretched last year when they were in Europe. They kind of had to commit to the priority is the league, so they've brought in those four players, which I think will make them stronger, and they hope that they go back to group stage football. They'll probably be eyeing up maybe Europa League rather than Europa Conference League if that's not greedy. But they needed those additional players within the squad just to provide a little bit more backbone and strength if they're to be competitive domestically and in Europe right through to December. If they are playing group stage football, if they do qualify for group stage football, it won't be quite as condensed because of the World Cup last year. All the games are finished before mid-November, which wouldn't be the case this year.
Yeah, and Marcus Poom, I suppose, interesting sign in terms of his father's probably the well-known goalkeeper in the Premier League, Mark Poom. Have you seen much from McDara? Is he a central midfield player? Is he a box-to-box? Do you know?
Yeah, central midfield. So I saw him playing a couple of friendlies. He played in the game against Lucan, I think it was the game against Bray. So no, he's I think he's left-footed, but he's good off both feet. And yeah, like he was part of the Flora talent squad that Rovers played 2 years ago that knocked Rovers out, and Flora qualified for the Conference League. But he actually didn't play in those two games. But in the group stages, he played in all six. I think he's 13. He's 13 international caps for Estonia. He's one of a number of Estonian internationals, and players that are coming in. Clubs have maybe widened their net a little bit. Maybe the wages, it becomes a bit maybe more competitive to bring some of those players in. So no, he looks a creative player. He's quite strong. He's quite tall as well. So I certainly like the look of him in the preseason friendlies anyway.
And Steve, the latest player from Bows to cross to the south side, Liam Burt, another one bites dust.
I think that one was kind of telegraphed, I think, for a little while, especially towards the end of Keith Long's tenure. He was sort of, I don't know, there seemed to be a bit of a falling out, and himself and Ali Coote was kind of in the same boat. But after a bit of uncertainty from a fan's point of view, anyway, Ali Coote seems to be staying on. But Burt, I think, especially kind of maybe the second half of last season, I don't know exactly kind of the details around it, but he had certainly seemed to have fallen out with Long, and then Derek Pender hadn't really got him in the team much either when he had taken over from Long. And it seemed to be kind of one of those that was kind of signed, sealed, and delivered well before it was announced. But I suppose kind of from a Bows fan point of view, it's one of those that, the name on the front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back. So if someone isn't going to be playing for the team, playing for the club, playing for the fans, we'd rather see them out the door than in the club, I think.
How do you so far rated Bowes' transfer activity? I noticed a new centre back today.
Yeah, the fella who came in today, and it was kind of a problem position, I suppose. Kind of anyone you'd see on Twitter and on social media and in different places, or even just talking to other Bows fans. The defence is where we've been lacking and where we've been really light, especially throughout the transfer window. So Kasper Radkowski, I think is how you pronounce it. 21-year-old Polish centre back. He's on loan for the full season as well, which is good. He spent pretty much all pre-season, I think, with us, and he's played a couple of pre-season games. So obviously, Declan Vine's like the look of him. He seems to have, from what I've seen and what I've read, he seems to have settled in well. We got another fella on loan from Lincoln. At the moment, it's just until June, I think. The loan, Jay Ben. He's a right fullback, and it seemed like it was a great thing to be able to get another right full back in, and then he, I think, went off injured about 20 minutes into his debut the other day. I think it was a clash of heads, so hopefully nothing too serious, because we're seriously light in the right back position in particular. I think Chris Tadhg, who's predominantly a winger, filled in there for the rest of the game. So it's not somewhere we'd like to see Tadhg, I don't think. So we'd much rather have someone like Ben, who's an out-and-out right full back in there.
Yeah, what we might do now is actually have a listen to one of those new signings, an old returning face, Keith Buckley. But first, let's hear from the Bows manager, Declan Devine.
Declan, was it start from scratch this season, or?
Look, I'm a new manager on the Bohemians. We're trying to establish our team. We're trying to establish a team that will represent the club in a positive way. I think over the last couple of seasons, it hasn't went as well as expected, finishing 5th and 6th respectively. So we're trying to just put a new twist on things. We've moved from a part-time model to a full-time model. We've brought a lot of quality into the group. I'm delighted with the signings that we've made. We just want to try and re-establish the club and try to get back to where it belongs.
Brilliant. I suppose we're from a music magazine, so I've been asking every manager what kind of tunes are on in the dressing room.
With a wide range of players that we've brought on, there's everything from Daniel O'Donnell to hip hop. So we've got a lot of different characters in the changing room, which is good. So I think Paddy Kirk's the man for the music. I think there's a few guys there that fancy themselves as a bit of a DJ. So there's a wide range, to be honest.
I didn't see Bose and Daniel O'Donnell becoming a...
No, definitely not. But no, listen, I'm only joking. I haven't heard Daniel myself. I might start playing it. I haven't come down from Donegal, but no, definitely. Look, the lads have been very expressive. They're fantastic. We all went to Damien Dempsey last week as a group. Brilliant. So it was fantastic. So it was a class night out, and it was really inspirational listening to his life story. And that's the beauty of representing Bows. It's proper people that are associated with the club, and working class people, and people that are just normal.
I suppose how important is it that the club continue doing the kind of things that they're doing outside of football in terms of climate and social justice and things like that? They're all is very involved.
It's unbelievable, let's be honest about it. Like, I was in the Brandywell a number of years ago when it didn't look as if there was going to be a Bohemians football club, when the supporters came on the pitch. And then the supporters and the board and the members rallied round to save the club. The work that's going on behind the scenes, not just with climate and community or prisons, ladies, disability, football. The work that's going on behind the scenes has just absolutely blew me away. Yes, I've been involved in other clubs where community aspects are huge, but this club is a community club. It's a club that gives everything of itself to be represented in its people. And I just think it's inspirational, and we have got to look at what work is going on behind the scenes as footballers and managers and coaches, and understand that we have our part to play in that process as well. But it's an amazing football club, and I'm not just saying it because I'm standing here. I would say it if I was manager of another club as well. But I'm honoured to be part of the team that's representing this club, because the work that goes on, not just within Dublin, but with refugees, within people with disabilities, as say, ladies football, everything that goes on within the football club behind the scenes is mind-blowing.
I suppose on the pitch then, as you said, you've brought a lot of players in. There's a lot of players gone out as well. Have you been identifying kind of areas of weakness?
No, look, we have to get defenders in. I think the club needed a shake. I think last year wasn't good enough. I think it needed a reboot. We've lost good players. We've lost players that have given a lot for Bohemians, but at the same time, I'm delighted with the players that we brought on. I'm delighted with the application and the mindset of the players that we brought on. I'm delighted with the backroom team that we've formulated in a short period of time. So look, as I say, it's an exciting time for the club, but there's no time for sitting about and patting ourselves on the back. We've got to understand that we got to hit the ground running. Football's based on results, and we got to make sure we give our fans something to shout about, because they're spending hard-earned money that people don't have in this current climate. And when we represent them on a Friday night, we've got to give them value for money. And value money comes from spirit, it comes from aggression, it comes from technical ability to play. And we're in a privileged position to represent this club on a Friday night, and we've got to make sure that we pull our end of the bargain with it.
So what's the aspirations in this season?
Beat Cork.
Good man.
Won our first game. Try and win your first game as quick as you can. It's my 16-17 season in the league. I know how difficult it is, but all we're looking at is getting our first one on the board as quickly as possible.
So Keith, how are you feeling about the new season and being back at Bows?
It's been good. It felt like a longer than a year, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, and do you feel like the travelling was good for you as well? Did you get to play a bit of ball when you were away?
Yeah, I was just playing a bit part-time over there, and then I was again travelling, because if I wanted to commit to full-time over there, wouldn't be able to travel, and the whole point was I wanted to see Australia, so yeah.
Perfect. And how do you feel coming back now? Is there much changes when you're coming back, or did you fit right back in?
Well, the playing staff, there's a lot of changes here. Probably 2 and 3 players only there since I've left, so probably 18 lads have gone. You just got to go in and do your work, and that's the way it goes. That's life, innit?
Yeah. And how have you found Devine so far? Is he a good influence on the team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's a great lad. He's full of energy. Every morning he's high on life. Decky coming in, he's high-fiving it and everything. But again, like as I said, he's a man of his word, and if you're not in training and you're not pushing at your very max, you won't play. You won't play for him. As simple as that. And that's all he asks for. He doesn't complicate things. Things are very simple. He asks to give you everything, and if you don't give everything, you won't be on the pitch. That goes for everybody. Nobody. Doesn't matter if you're a young lad, 18 years of age, or you're the captain. If you're not putting in, you won't play.
Yeah, and you were saying there, obviously a lot of new faces, and so some good re-signing as well. James Talbot obviously is a very important one as well. So how do you feel the squad is coming together now ahead of next Friday?
Yeah, there's obviously areas that everyone knows we need to get in certain areas. With James signing back, it's great because himself, he obviously missed the last year. He was out for a period of time. So it's good to have him back, and he's like a new man now, coming in the mornings and stuff. So
Perfect. And how has pre-season been treating you now? The last one.
It's been good. I'm loving it that you can get the extra sessions in on the pitch and stuff, and in the gyms and stuff like that, because it's full time now. So it's great getting up in the morning. Effectively, you're getting up in the morning down to work and you're playing football. And we're lucky people to be able to do that. And it's my first time ever doing it.
Yeah.
So it's new to me, and I'm liking it at the moment.
So just on that, Luke, Keith Buckley was talking about, full-time football and getting up in the morning and playing football. That's the priority. So that, one of the big changes with Bohemians for the year. And, new manager came in. Declan came in towards the end of the season, but I think the acquisition of Pat Fenlon as, I think, is it director of football, Stephen? I don't know what the exact title.
Yeah, director of football, I think is his official title. Yeah.
Yeah, I think is a really shrewd signing by the club. A guy who did everything on the pitch, everything off the pitch as a manager, and in success with Bohemians, also with Shelbourne, and then has been involved in a kind of that administrative level with Waterford, and then with Linfield for the last couple of years. Linfield, a massive club, and good success during his time up there. I think to get him to come in is really impressive, and probably takes a little bit of weight off shoulders from Declan Devine as well. We've seen it at other clubs where there's somebody kind of above the manager that can just kind of help out on that day-to-day basis. And then I was just seeing, Stephen, you probably saw it as well, that the new terrace that Bows are just finishing off the away terrace on the Commonstreet side. They've named it the Mono Stand, I see today, which is great.
Yeah, I'll start off with Fenlon first of all coming in. I think it is a really good acquisition and really shrewd one by the club, because I think because of his knowledge not only around the club but around the league kind of as a whole, and I suppose kind of the reputation and the pull that he'll have, kind of we're hoping that it'll be a really positive thing and be able to, like you say, sort of take a little bit of the weight off Devine's shoulders when it comes to different matters, both on and off the pitch. And yeah, so hopefully kind of that'll all work out. He's got experience at kind of every level, like you say. So yeah, it was nice to have Nutsy come back in for a role at the club. And then just on the terrace then itself, I saw that officially it was announced today that it will be ready for the first home game of the season. It was kind of, I think they said a couple of days ago it was 50-50, but they announced officially today that it was going to be ready, and that would be called the Mono Stand. So first of all, I think it's great that we're able to kind of up the capacity of the element. Obviously, with the redevelopment is kind of, it seems to be off and on again the whole time, and then there's this plan and then there's this plan, and kind of it's all sort of up in the air. It seems to be a little bit more concrete now, but the fact that we're actually able to, I think the capacity is kind of upped from about 3,500 last year to about 4,000 this year. So it'd be great to actually be able to have that extra bit of atmosphere, the extra pull to be able to get people in. And I think having it called the Mono Stand is really, really classy touch by the club, because Derek Monaghan, for anyone who didn't know, was a huge part of Bohemian Football Club. He was a presence in and around Dalymount, in and around the team on match days, kind of in the background for everything. He'd passed away there just kind of towards the end of last season, and it was a really, really difficult period for the club. And now he's got one of the bars that he would have looked after, kind of in the Jody stand or underneath the Jody stand, named after him, but also now the new temporary stand, which is brilliant as well.
And that it's a really good bit of infrastructure that they put in. If people haven't seen it, it's well worth looking at Bo's Twitter online. Just have a look at the photos, because many people listening will be going as an away spectator to Dalymount Park, and nice terrace, crush barriers down the front, roof on the top, which will generate a good bit of atmosphere for both the away fans, but also the home fans as well. I think it's good if you have as a home fan, if you have a vocal away section as well. I think it heightens the atmosphere, and it's absolutely. It's something that I'm sure other clubs will be talking to Bohemians about, going, listen, how did you go about it? What's the cost? Because it's something that they were able to, they've obviously invested in, and it's taken a little bit of time to put together, but it's something that other clubs might have a look at putting in on a temporary basis, on a kind of a midterm basis. I think it's a really, really good acquisition, and bringing a capacity up above 4,000 is great to hear. Because there's been so many games that Bohemians, it's been sold out. It's great to have demand, but you want to be able to match the demand. So really, really positive, positive development in the ground while we're waiting for the full redevelopment to go ahead.
Speaking of stands and development, is the new stand going to be open, the North Stand in Tadhg? Is that going to be open for the first time?
No, it's not. No, so they're still they're actually the work that's going on at the minute is one of the reasons why Rovers. Well, the President's Cup was in Derry because it was good time for it was the first time Derry, I think, had been in it, and Rovers have had the President's Cup final in Tadhg in the last couple of years, but also Tadhg was not available. The Rovers are playing the first couple of games away from home, but that's mainly to do with their redeveloping the main stand, the West Stand in Tadhg, so they're doing some works, moving the club offices, increasing the kind of the media area, also the kind of the corporate area as well. And I think they're doing some work with the dressing rooms. But no, I think the completion date for the new stand will be later in the year. The idea is that when European football comes around, it'll be fully finished. So no, it's the roof is on, but the seats aren't in. But there's a lot of extra work. It's kind of fit out behind the stand, so that's where the club shop's going to be. But it's also where so the toilets need to be fitted out. So it's like mechanical and electrical fit out, that type of stuff. So no, not that new stand won't be ready for the new season. But it wasn't planned for that. They were always saying kind of towards the mid level of 2023.
I suppose the last point before we finish with Bo was in terms of we were talking Daniel Lambert last year, and that they were talking about that move from part-time football to full-time football, and Declan Devine touched on it there actually, Steve, in his clip talking about full-time football, and Keith Buckley mentioned it as well. That can make a huge difference this season now, maybe that Bowles now could get that extra 10%.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Keith Buckley coming back from Australia obviously will be huge, because he was such a leader and such a great captain, kind of, especially with Talbot being injured for so long last year. It's kind of something that we were lacking hugely, that sort of leadership presence on the pitch, and it told as well. But yeah, the move from part-time to full-time football hopefully will show up on the pitch, especially we've still got the deal with DCU, so they got really, really good training facilities and everything up there. Bucko said in that little audio clip that he's getting up in the morning to go out and play football, and it's basically his job. So it's he kind of can't believe his luck almost listening to that clip. And I think obviously we mentioned Pat Fenlon coming in, Declan Devine, getting the likes of Keith Buckley back, James Talbot staying on, the full-time football, the facilities up in DCU. I think it will be in the future, and has been, I'd say, kind of quite a pull for the club to be able to sort of have these as a selling point for new players coming in. And I think kind of from everyone's point of view associated with Bohemians, we've been fairly happy with the transfer dealings that have gone on. We've got we let a lot of players go that may not have been up to scratch really, or may not have had their full heart in it. And the players who've come in, while we still would like maybe one or two more, the players who've come in seem to be of a really good caliber. So hopefully we'll be able to get one or two more over the line, specifically or especially defenders, and hopefully the full-time football aspect will be a bit of a pull as well.
Switching our attention now to the other team, the north side, and that's Shelbourne. Andrew, you were chatting to the captain, Luke Byrne, on the day of the launch. Talked about another tough pre-season they had, and I suppose they're looking for an improvement as well. I suppose go a bit further this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think last season it was all about consolidating a place in the Premier Division last year, and look, they achieved that quite comfortably in the end. I don't think there was ever really a doubt that they were going to be staying up in the top flight. So obviously it was a job well done, and obviously getting to the cup final was an achievement. But granted, the way they lost the final is probably going to sting. And I think I mentioned that when speaking to Luke, and he kind of said, "Yeah, look, you're only as good as your last game." And look, they've obviously got a bit of a bee in their bonnet after that. But I think overall, if you look at their squad, maybe 1 to 11, maybe even 1 to 18, I think it is a stronger squad than what they had last year. So if Shells are in a similar position to where they were last year come the end of this season, I think it probably would be quite disappointing. But look, I think for Shells again, it's probably about, I don't know, maybe Europe could be a bit too much for them this year, but maybe if they start pushing on a little bit more, maybe get closer to the European places, I think it'd be a good season for them.
Yeah. Well, first, let's have a little listen to the clip actually with yourself and talking to Luke Byrne on the day of the launch.
Grant, Luke, Shells captain. Another exciting season. I suppose you're probably really looking forward to it now.
Yeah, of course, can't wait. Obviously at this time every year, players all around the country get very excited for the league to come back. The off season always feels a bit long, and you're itching to get going. So I'm no different. The lads on the team are no different. We've had a hard pre-season, but it's all with the eyes on I suppose that first game, and we're nearly there.
Did it feel even longer after losing that cup final?
Did it feel longer? Probably didn't feel longer, but it actually just made you want to come back quicker, really, to be honest, because you obviously finished on a low point, and the whole thing of football, you're only as good as your last game. That's what it feels like. So we obviously wanted to come back in and get trained, and I suppose just wanted games to come again, because obviously I had the last one with us.
Yeah, I know last year, I think maybe this time last year, you said it was probably the toughest pre-season you've ever had. Yeah. Was this equally as tough, even tougher, or how was it?
Yeah, probably, we're definitely on a par. There'd be no reason it wasn't as hard, to be honest. We've been back since early December, 5-6 days a week, in over Christmas, double sessions, 2 games a weekend, so army training, we've done it all. So it's every bit as intense as last year. Maybe the one thing is just that we'd all experienced last year, so we kind of knew what to expect. Our bodies knew what to expect. It wasn't a shock, maybe. That'd be the only difference, I'd say.
Right, yeah, definitely. And look, obviously, you played last year. I suppose it was big last year, maybe just in terms of staying up after what happened in the past. So it's, I suppose, for you guys at Chelsea, it's probably about kicking on now, isn't it? Maybe just try and just stay away from that battle at the bottom again.
Of course, yeah. Look, like you said, coming up, the most important thing was obviously to establish ourselves in the Premier Division. We did that quite early. We improved a lot as the season went on. We had the cup run, so overall it was a positive first season back, but we won't be satisfied with repeating that this year. We want to go better, more points, higher up the league, go better in the cup. I mean, that's why would you play football, to come out and just accept what you did last year? There's very few teams in the world can start a season by saying that they would be happy with what they achieved last year. Maybe only Rovers in this country. So we'll definitely be looking to improve.
Absolutely. And look, obviously you've added to your squad as well. Obviously Conor Kearns has come in, obviously a really good goalkeeper from the first, would have been an Ireland under 21 international. You've obviously added elsewhere in the squad, so you may have lost one or two, but you've probably added to that group I suppose maybe just added to the group while also losing a few.
We've definitely improved. You know, the squad has improved, the depth of the squad has improved. Young players are a year older, and we've brought in a few players that the likes of Paddy, Connor, Tadhg that have experience of the league, which is going to be important for us. But added to that, you know, we've got like Evan Caffrey's a young player who's got probably 50 games under his belt, so they all make us better in their own way, and you've got to be very happy with the way the squad is looking now.
Would you have coached Evan before?
I had Evan at Rovers 15s, and then I played against him at UCD, so I know him very well, and he's Gavin Malloy's first cousin, so they're like best friends, and great kid, always been a great kid, and it's just good to see him developing and having, you know, starting out on a good career, hopefully.
What's that been like playing with players that you coached? Does it make you feel older?
Yeah, probably does, to be honest, but I keep myself young. I hang around with a few of the young lads, so I don't feel too old.
Look, obviously, opening night against Drogheda, I think last season you ended your home campaign against Drogheda and you got a big win, so look, maybe you probably won't have it as easy this time, but you're probably looking to get a similar kind of performance for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and our first win last season was against Drogheda as well, so but they did beat us as well. I think we beat them 3 times, they beat us once. We've played them pre-season, so we know what they're like, they know what we're like. It's going to be a tight game, but we're at home, first night of the season, we'd be looking to beat anybody that we're drawn against.
Yeah, so there seems to be a real momentum building about Chelsea, isn't there? Even from last year, it kind of built week on week, and even from being in the first division every week on week, it kept them building, so you probably just, even heading into this season, it seems like you're just moving forward.
100%, the club is on and off the field, you know, the club is growing, improving, both sides, you know, men and women's, even down to the academy, so it's just a great place to be at the moment, you know, but our job is to continue progressing on the pitch, because I know that helps the club grow off the pitch, so they kind of come hand in hand. But yeah, look, I couldn't be, you know, happier personally at the club, and I know a lot of the lads would feel that kind of, you know, say the bond between the players and the fans, and it's just a good place to be.
Just looking at the signings, Andrew, I suppose some of the standard names possibly is Paddy Barrett coming in, Conor Kearns as well, Tadhg Wilson making the move from Bowes. There's kind of the highlights of the signings coming in.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and Damien actually said that it was quite funny at the launch actually when Damien Duff only did one media interview, and that was with a big huddle of people. So there was no one-on-ones with Duffer for this. But from just reading his comments elsewhere, he did mention that Paddy Barrett was a player that they probably needed a player that could come in and, I don't know, maybe, you know, upset the group dynamic a little bit. He said the squad was probably quite young and they weren't really questioning things. So obviously with Paddy Barrett coming in, he's won a couple of league titles. So I'm sure he's probably going to be a face that's not going to be afraid to speak his mind when needed, of course. So yeah, look, a really good addition. And look, I think the biggest one of all is being able to keep Matty Smith after being on loan from Derry last year. I think that's probably the most important of all.
Yeah, and even looking at someone like Andrew Quinn coming in with a very good season last year, Drogheda too. You mentioned as well Evan Caffrey. There's a link there with Luke Byrne, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he would have worked with Luke at the famous Shamrock Rovers under 15 team that Duff was in charge of. So obviously a bit of history with Luke and a bit of history with Duffer as well. And I think Evan Caffrey's probably established himself as one of the most probably impressive young midfielders in the league. He's probably got over 50 appearances, and he's 19 already, so he's definitely one to watch heading into this season.
And Andrew, looking at the signings, it looks like 6 players have gone to Longford from Shelbourne. Do I have that right?
Yeah, there's a good few. I think a lot of the reasoning for that would probably be because when Stephen Henderson was his last job, he was Shell's academy director, I think, so he would be quite familiar with a lot of them. So, you know, you have the likes of, who was it, Josh Georgie, who I know he probably wouldn't have worked with Stephen Henderson before, but he's definitely one to watch. And look, Kyle O'Connor would have worked with Stephen Henderson, Francis Campbell, Jamal Ibrahim as well. So yeah, a good few have. And looking elsewhere, look, obviously Stefan Negger's gone to Oxford, and by all accounts he's impressed. And so obviously, look, they've lost a good few, but as I was saying there, I think if you look at the players they've lost against the players they've gained, I think they've definitely improved.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm reading your Arskell, you've been doing all the work, heavy lifting on the transfer tracker during the year, during the off season, which is great. But I think the acquisition, I don't know whether Conor Kearns is stronger than Brendan Clark, but he is a good goalkeeper. Tyreek Wilson has come to join his brother at the club. I have that right as well, don't I?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think in terms of the goalkeeping situation there, you probably could argue that Brendan Clark is of a stronger calibre than Conor Kearns, but I think we also need to remember Conor Kearns is 23, 24. Like, in terms of as a goalkeeper, he's still very young, so he's definitely got scope for a lot of improvement, whereas you're looking at Brendan Clark, and without being too disrespectful to him, I don't think there's an awful lot more improvement in him. I don't think so. I think if you're looking maybe from a purely development side of things, I think it's a move that made sense anyway from just looking at it from the outside. But look, I think there may be one or two teething issues at the start, but I think Conor Kearns will definitely be a good goalkeeper for Shells, and maybe, if not this season, definitely in 1 or 2 seasons' time.
It's kind of a lot of similarities with Shells kind of past this season in terms of the kind of stability, the kind of bulk of the squad is pretty much same. Similar to Shamrock Rovers, bar Britty Bowles, there hasn't been much, I'd say, chop and change with squads. They all quite settlement there. Yeah,
like Pats have brought in, we talked about Flower Talon, a teammate of Marcus Poom. So Vladislav Creed has come in. Again, he's on loan, but there's been a lot of talk about Jake Mulroney coming from Orlando City. Like, he's, I think there were other clubs definitely looking to bring him in. And I think he was keen to come back from the States, to come back to live in Ireland. You can go online and you can see what his salary was at Orlando, because all the MLS salaries are available. And I don't think he's beyond that kind of cut at St. Pat's. I think Tommy Lonergan is a really good signing because he was excellent for UC last year. He stepped up in particular when Colin Whelan got injured, and he was excellent. He played under 19 football for Ireland as well during that time, and I think he's a really good signing for Pats, just to provide a little bit more upfront with the two Doyles up front. I think it was a really, really good option for them. But yeah, not a huge number of players that have come in.
Yeah, the Lonergan and even the Conor Carty sign on loan from Bolton are interesting, because I thought last year in particular, unless Owen Doyle was scoring, there wasn't a lot of goals really coming from that passing in front. Mark Doyle really struggled last season, which would be interesting against on this year, because I know he's a favourite, Tim Clancy. I mean, Tunde Olabi was let go on a free. Bar that hat-trick against Bowles, really didn't do much in games. So it'll be interesting in terms of if Doyle does get injured, you're looking at 20 and 19-year-olds to kind of lead the line. Obviously, I haven't seen at all really Vladislav Creed play yet. It'll be interesting he gets on. But the eyes will be on Mulroney. That's going to be the sign, really. Like, he's the big name coming in, kind of similar to Owen Doyle last year. Interesting, actually, Noah Lewis came in, and Tim Kent spoke with the fact that he only got in because he's meant to sign in England, and because of Brexit rules, he wasn't actually able to sign in Britain. So it's a benefit there, that actually players are coming, and potentially that's the deal with some of the Baltic players and Baltic nations coming in, that it is more difficult for players who are not we've got the travel common area with Britain, so it's very easy for players to go across. In any walk of life, you can go across and work in the UK, but if you're coming from elsewhere in the EU, it is more difficult. So another Brexit bounce potentially for our league. Yeah, I suppose the only area I'd have slight concerns this season, looking at it, put my Pats cap on, is I think in defence could be a slight bit short. Just if we get an injury there.
Yeah, and I know they were keen to hang on to Barry Cotter, but Shamrock Rovers weren't keen to sell them to a club that they could be pushing Rovers. So the talk was that Pat's offered more money than he did. Where did he go in the UK? Sorry, it's Barnsley, where he got a 3.5-year deal, which did surprise me. I saw a fair bit of Cotter at Pats last year, and he was excellent going forward. But defensively, not so strong. And Rovers, they were happy to get a fee for him, even if it was slightly less from Barnsley than they would have got from Richmond Park.
Yeah, look at that. Look, I think obviously that was disappointing sign in terms of the back end last season. Considering that the first part of the season we had Jack Scott, and I'm not here to criticise players, but he was underwhelming to say the least. So Barry Carter coming in was a huge improvement in that area. So you're looking now at right wing back. Obviously Noah Lewis, I assume, is going to come in there. You're also looking at young Sam Curtis too, can play on the right. But again, a 20 and 17-year-old, you're relying on this season there. If there's an injury to Anto Perez on the left, that's also an issue. Who comes in there?
And the other thing, Luke, I presume Sam Curtis won't be at St. Pat's for too long. He's so good that there must be clubs across the Irish Sea looking to bring him across, I would have thought, no?
It's Man City, isn't it? That's the one to look for.
Because how old is he?
He's not 18, I'm pretty sure, till the winter, so it'll be the full season. We'll get out.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully Pat's get the full season out of him when he does well. He's been excellent, great player to have in your squad, or to have in your team. Sorry, because he played so regularly last year.
No, I think he'll play the season as well. I think he'll get a lot of game time. So I think we'll get the full season out of him. It's just I'm just a bit concerned over a bit of depth. Like, I think the start 11's not bad. I think we could have strengthened a bit more, but because again you're kind of relying on maybe Forrester for that spark. Billy King is gone, so he was kind of another player with a little bit of spark in him. Ben McCormick will be actually interesting this season. I don't know if people see much from him, but like there's a lot of talk about him the last couple of years, and Byrne kind of became the young player that everyone looked to. Now he's obviously gone, so this could be maybe Ben McCormick's. We might talk a little later on, actually, myself and you, about players to look out for, but just that my kind of hat tip later on. What I do is we'll actually chat about UCD before we finish up the Dublin clubs. Andrew, you were chatting to Jake Keaney. Might have a listen to that clip first, and then we'll have a chat down, Andrew.
Right, Jack. Big season, another big season for yourselves in UCD. You must be really looking forward to getting going now.
Yeah, I suppose no player probably likes pre-season, so we're counting down the days to get done. We're just really looking forward to get going and seeing where we are.
Yeah, and look, obviously you've probably lost a couple of players, but you've obviously added to the squad. Obviously Brendan's come in from Derry, and obviously you've had a couple more coming in, so obviously you've lost a few but you've gained a few.
I suppose that's with every off-season. You're going to lose boys and get boys in, so we've lost probably boys that were key to us staying up last year, but just like anything, the new boys coming in probably have to step up, and that's something that we've been drilling into them, what we're about, and they look good so far, so hopefully long may it continue.
And obviously I know you're probably one of the more experienced guys in this group now, I suppose, so you probably know what to expect, and you know what standards to be setting for the younger guys coming through from, especially from the 19s and maybe the Leinster Senior League team.
But it's not just me. Look, there's a good core of senior lads, Dara, Michael, Sam, Diggsy, Lorcan. There's a good few lads there that kind of know what we have to do, and it's something that we've been drilling into them. And Andy, look, Andy's been brilliant with everyone, so just something that we've keep the standards high and keep it going.
And how much of an achievement was it last year to actually stay up in that Premier Division? Because I suppose maybe for a time last year it looked like you were probably going to struggle to win a game, and then you go off and stay up, and you stayed up quite comfortably in the end against Waterford that night.
I suppose probably we were written off at the start of the year by a lot of people, probably the same as this year, to be honest, but I suppose that gives us great motivation to go out and prove people wrong, and I thought we did that. Look, it was always going to take us a few games to get used to the standard, probably longer than we would have liked. But then I don't think anyone could complain towards the end of the season. I thought we were very good, and even in that playoff game I thought we were deserved. Obviously the second half we were defending maybe probably more than we liked, but it was brilliant, so hopefully we can just kick on now.
I suppose there's definitely a bit of a steel kind of being built into this UCD squad now, isn't there? So maybe in the past they were kind of maybe seen as a bit of a soft touch, but now there's definitely a bit of a bite about you.
I suppose we're always known as the typical students, soft and the pushover, but that's what we were trying to change the last few years, and I think we have that. So hopefully that can stay this year, and it will be hard to beat.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously I know this next couple of days as well, it's going to really ramp up for you guys. Obviously you have the Collingwood right before the start of the season, so look, I don't know, is that a good thing or a bad thing to be playing Collingwood games right before it, or is it kind of the best of both worlds?
Yeah, well, look, I think that's what every one of us know, that we know Collingwood's around the time of the first league game, so it's something we've coped with it last year, and hopefully we can do the same next week. So, but look, it's another competition, you're in it to win it, and that's what we're going there and hopefully do.
Absolutely, and obviously opening night is against Dundalk as well, so I suppose as far as opening assignments go, it's probably one of the tougher ones.
Yeah, but look, when you're in the league, you're looking at the games when you're playing in Talloway, you're in Oriel away. Look, you want to be playing against the best teams week in, week out, and that's what we're going to do. So, look, we'll get our homework done over the next week and then hopefully hit the ground running.
So looking ahead then for UCD, Andrew, how do we see them faring out this season? I suppose survival is the main thing for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult year for them. I think coming into last year, few would have expected UCD to be able to compete. Granted, look, they had Liam Kerrigan, Colin Whelan, and even Dylan Duffy at that stage. Dylan Duffy was probably a bit of an unknown quantity then, but I think many who had their ear to the ground probably would have expected him to do quite well, and he did. But I think the issue for UCD now is that they've lost all the players that made them so good last year. But yeah, as I said, it's going to be, look, last season was a brilliant achievement to stay up. And if they manage to do it this season, I think it's probably going to go down as one of the greatest achievements in probably League of Ireland football. Look, if you look at the squad, I don't think you can compare them to any of the other teams, but they certainly have young players who are probably going to want to have a point to prove. Looking at the players they brought in, you have Brendan Barr from Derry, you have Mikey Raggett from Shamrock Rovers, you have Adam Wells from Shamrock Rovers as well. So look, it's obviously a young squad, it's a young core, but I think they'll probably get better as they go on, but I just fear for them in the first couple of months of the season, because that's traditionally when UCD struggle, and if they're cut adrift very early on, it's a long way back, and you probably just can't see them coming back.
Yeah, I'd hope that it doesn't. They really struggled at times in their last spell in the Premier Division when Collie O'Neill was manager, and ultimately Collie left before the end of the season. They took a number of hammerings, including one. I think it was a 10-1 maybe against Bohemians. And I'd be a little bit fearful of a lot of time for UCD, what they bring to the league in relation to developing players. But as you outlined, Andrew, they've just lost so much quality out of their team. Now maybe Andy Meylers has a few gems that are going to come from, that have signed on scholarship or maybe come up from the under-19 team. But Dylan Duffy was another really, really good player, and he's gone to Lincoln City. And Sean Brennan I was always really impressed with, and he's off to Drogheda. So like the players that they brought in are young players. So the likes of the two players that I know the names of anyway from Shamrock Rovers, like some Wells and Raggett, were with the under-19 team. I think Wells played a little bit maybe in the first division when they had the Shamrock Rovers 2 team as well.
Yeah, and I think the big problem with UCD is it's not that the players that are losing are big. It's the fact that the players they've lost were part of their core last year. I think it's really hard to replace a core, but when you lose a core like that, it's very, very difficult to replace. Like, you look at the replacements they brought in, and I don't think I'm being too disrespectful here, but like you compare like with like, and when you have Sean Brennan and he's not being replaced by a player of Sean Brennan's standard, it's obviously going to have an impact. And I think maybe up front, I'd be quietly confident about maybe their replacement for Colin Whelan and Tommy Lonergan. They've got a guy called Lennon Gill who's absolutely lit up the under-19 leagues for maybe the last couple of years. He was really unlucky last year. He picked up an injury in May, and he's been out since then. So he's only just coming back now, and he's, by all accounts, he's probably the next big one to watch at UCD. So yeah, look, as I said there, it's just going to be really difficult for them. And look, even speaking to Andy Meyler a couple of weeks ago, he did mention that the reality is that there's more and more full-time professional outfits in the Premier Division. I think it's just them and Drogheda this year that are part-time. So that's gonna make their task even more difficult as this season wears on, and possibly even next season.
Let's just go. Steve, in particular, Bose, what are we thinking this season? What's a realistic game?
I've seen kind of a lot of people on social media and things like that kind of saying sort of in around third, fourth. I'm not sure if that's just kind of them being way too optimistic or me being a little bit too pessimistic, but kind of I reckon, I know we seem to have kind of strengthened well, and I know some of the teams around us have lost some big players and big names. But I would imagine probably in around 5th, be very happy with somewhere in around 3rd or 4th. But yeah, kind of, especially with such a big overhaul of the team. Declan Devine, I know he knows the league and everything like that, but just the fact that he's the new man for the job. Obviously, he got a couple of games at the tail end last year, but yeah, I reckon somewhere in the mid-table.
Andrew, I'll let you be the spokesperson then for Shells and UCD. What's a good season for both?
UCD, if they manage to get the playoff, I think that would be an unbelievable achievement. And as for Shells, yeah, probably just, I know I kind of said, look, that they'd probably be disappointed if they come in a similar position to last year. But I think if they, have a higher points tally, look a bit stronger, don't go on those winless runs like they did towards the end of last season, and become a bit more consistent, I think that'll be a good season for like a Campton envisage Shells being anywhere near a relegation battle. So they should be fine. And yeah, I think probably 6th or 7th probably for Shells be a good season, and possibly another cup run, but who knows really about them.
Steve, Andrew, thanks for that.
And there's kind of a lot of grumbling about maybe we don't have enough Premier League players, but in terms of the Championship, but
what's the point in grumbling about it?
But
I can't hold about it, can I? If they're not playing the play, what's the point of me grumbling?
But the step up to international football in the Championship is it kind of it's an easy management.
Well, I tell you back there when we played in 2002, what's the point of me grumbling? We had lads who were all at the bottom of the Premier League, real scrapping away, Kinse and Matty Holland, and I had Gary Breen who hadn't even got a club. What's the point of me grumbling? So I don't subscribe to that. You just. Whatever it is, whatever I've got, I'll get them together and make the best of them and try and make sure we qualify. Grumbling is not one of the things I do.
You can subscribe to each new episode of the ExtraTime.ie Sportscast on iTunes. Please give a rating or add a comment there to let us know your views.
And then we turn our attention to Sligo Rovers. I'd like to say Jessica Farry alongside us. Jessica, how are you?
Good, thanks very much. How are you?
What's the mood like around the showgrounds today? You were up there today chatting John Russell.
Yeah, I was up there today just to get a few words from some of the guys. Everyone's actually kind of, I'm not going to say quietly confident, because John Russell is very much about how, there's 36 games in the season or whatever. But there's a lot of excitement because I think Sligo Rovers are kind of conscious of the fact that a lot of people are writing them off because basically there's 10 new signings in the squad. I'm including John Mahon in that because he is obviously a new player. But, you've got a lot of lads there who are new to the League of Ireland. So none of us really know what to expect from them. And even, if people have seen them in pre-season, John Russell, has kept everyone guessing in pre-season because he hasn't stuck to one starting 11, or they've had a game on a Friday and then on a Saturday. So he's kind of used different. He's used a lot of the youth academy. He's given players minutes here, given players minutes there. So no one has a clue what Sligo Rovers are going to be like, and they seem to really be kind of enjoying that, because John was speaking about how he's seen in a lot of the predictions, people are saying Sligo Rovers will finish 7th or 8th, and he's not saying they're going to win the league or anything like that, but he's kind of hopeful that the work he's put in during the off season will maybe pay off eventually, because if these new players gel, then like any squad, if it gels, it could be very good. But everyone seems to just be really looking forward to the season starting, and the new guys are all dying to get going.
How's the squad looking in terms of pre-season? A couple of games, have you seen many?
Yeah, I've seen a couple. It's been a bit of a mix, and I do laugh at the way some people kind of take pre-season very seriously. And I saw they lost to Wexford and people were like, oh, this is terrible, and John Russell needs to go and it's not going to work and all this kind of thing. And if you look at the teams he's played, it's all been very experimental. And in that I mean he's played new guys, but he's played even some of the under-17s, under-19s have been playing in pre-season, and it's just kind of to get a look at lads and see who maybe might be worth a shout later on and all that kind of thing. But I suppose the one highlight for Sligo Rovers in pre-season was that they got to go over to England and they used the FA's headquarters at St. George's Park for pre-season, and that was actually sponsored by one of the club sponsors, Pet Stop, and they were like, it's not something Sligo Rovers have ever got to do. I'd say they've had a couple of, pre-season trips, but not like, Waterford can go to Dubai. Although we were all laughing when it was pouring rain during their pre-season trip in Dubai, and you're thinking Sligo Rovers are like, this isn't quite as glamorous. But no, they said that there was kind of like the facilities were amazing, obviously, as you'd expect. But in terms of the new lads, because there were so many new guys there who like didn't really know people, that they really, really needed that trip to kind of get to know each other. And then like they were only given 2 weeks off when the season ended. So the season ended when they lost to Bows. The players who were signed up obviously at that stage had literally 2 weeks off, and they came back in, got their pre-season programs, and they all went home for Christmas or whatever, but they had programs to work on over the pre-season, because like that's the kind of manager John Russell is. He kind of demands a lot of his players and all that kind of thing. So he's really happy with how the players are looking. They do look fit. They definitely do look fit. And so I think they're kind of hoping that sort of work will pay dividends when the season starts.
Just on a couple of new signings, I suppose, 2 old faces returning first, John Matton and Gary Boylan. In particular, John Matton, that's a huge sign for the club. Yeah, listen, absolutely. John Mahon is a really, really good centre back, and we all know that. And he's kind of the old-fashioned one. And I suppose if you look at the fact that Gary Buckley is still out now, I know his recovery is going very, very well, so he'll hopefully be back early enough. But John Mahon is a local lad. You want local lads in your squad, obviously. He came through the academy. He left to go to St. Johnstone. That didn't quite work out, and so he's back now. And like he's comfortable at Sligo Rovers in that, like, he's at home. All of his friends are here. He loves it here. He loves playing for Sligo Rovers. Huge signing. And look, I suppose it had to happen. Like it wasn't going well at St. Johnstone. And I know there was talk over there that they would have preferred for him to go to a Scottish team on loan. But given the fact that Sligo Rovers really, really needed a centre back, you were kind of thinking that this is probably the most likely move to happen. And it was the right thing to do for everyone, I think. And yeah, he is a big addition. And then poor Gary Boylan, like his time at Sligo Rovers ended with a bad knee injury, and then he's come back, and which was a good move for him to come back. It was a huge chance to get, and now he's gone and done his ACL. It's devastating, and he is realistically going to miss the whole season. Like, even if things go well, he might get back for a few weeks towards the end, but that's as much as you can ask for, really. And it's really hard when that happens, because there's 3 players out at the minute with ACLs. It's Gary Buckley, Gary Boylan and Mark Byrne. So you're then trying to fit their replacements into a budget, which isn't easy. But yeah, look, I suppose it's nice to see the familiar faces coming back, but unfortunately Gary Boylan won't be around for much of the season. And the other new face that came in, a couple of players coming in from England and also further abroad, Scandinavia in particular. Yeah, I actually have had to write down the list of them, because there is 10 new signings, and obviously we've mentioned John Mahon and Gary Boylan, but you've got like Johan Brannefalk and Lucas Browning. Now they're both Swedish, but Browning was actually born in Drogheda, so he has played in Irish underage squads, and he already knew Aidan Keaney, who obviously has left Sligo Rovers now. He already knew Keaney, and he also knew James Finnerty, who has joined obviously from Bows, so he's kind of quite familiar with the league as it is. The 2 of them have looked quite good in pre-season. Browning is a midfielder, and then Brannefalk is a right back. He's an attacking right back. Like the look of him in pre-season, he looks really good. But like, it's really hard to know what John Russell is going to go for in terms of his starting 11. But I suppose one of the bigger things, and one of the players we've all been looking out for, like, is Fabrice Hartman, because he joined on loan during the summer last year from RB Leipzig, and there was an issue with his registration, so he actually couldn't play for last season. And kind of, I suppose, admirably, he stayed on, because you kind of would have expected him to just kind of go home because he couldn't play, but he stayed and just trained every day and played the odd friendly that there was. So he's obviously now he can play, because he's on loan for the year, so his loan will go until this summer. And he's a winger, and he's actually looked really good in pre-season, and he's been scoring a bit in pre-season too, and he's like really, really eager to get going, because he kind of sees this as his chance to show what he can do. And he's been at Leipzig for a while, but he's had a couple of loans, and this is his first one outside of Germany, and hasn't got off to the best start really, but he is dying to get going.
And everyone is really looking forward to seeing what he's going to be like, because we were told, you know, throughout last year when he couldn't play, that this guy was like the real deal and that he's a really good footballer. So I think we're all kind of dying to get a look at him.
On the outgoings, then obviously a couple of known faces: Paddy Kirk, Alan McDonald, Shane Blaney. But I suppose the big one there is Aidan Keaney leaving. That's going to be a huge blow for Sligo Rovers season.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Keaney, like, obviously look a really talented player, but a player with a really, really good attitude and a really hard worker. And he got something like 21 goals in all competitions last year, was the league's top scorer. It was funny because you kind of knew this was going to happen, and there was rumours for a long time that this club was looking at him and that club was looking at him. And I think the closer you got to the window closing, you were thinking maybe he is actually going to stay, but like it just kind of wasn't realistic. He deserved a move. He worked really hard and he kind of got his rewards, and I really hope it works out for him. But it's not that easy to get a striker within Ireland, or an Irish striker who's going to get you know, plus over 15 goals in a season. It's really tough. But on the flip side of that, if you like, Sligo Rovers had an over-reliance last year on Keaney. You know, yeah, they had a player who scored 17 league goals, but they still didn't even finish in a European spot, you know. So it was, you know, I think Max Mata got 7 league goals last year. So, and it's something that Russell has actually highlighted a good bit, is that they didn't get enough goals from midfield, didn't get enough goals from their wingers, and that the fullbacks as well didn't do enough from set plays in terms of goals. So now he's kind of hoping that with Hartman there, who likes to score goals, but you've also got Branafalk, who seems to be good for a goal too. You've got Mata, you've got the Faroese striker Stefan Radosavljevic. I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, but anyway, that's the best I can do. He's also going to be kind of filling in that role a little bit too. So I think he's kind of looking at having a few players who are going to get goals now, because you just can't replace Aidan Keaney. It's just not possible.
Jessica, can I ask, you kick off the season, Sligo Rovers play Shamrock Rovers on Saturday. Can I ask what's the character of Johnny Kenny? He's obviously, you know, Sligo fans would love to see him take up Aidan Keaney's place up front, but he's gone to Shamrock Rovers, and I'm sure he'll get a bit of stick. But how do you think he'll cope if he plays on Saturday night?
I actually think Johnny will cope just fine. He's 19 and he's got a fairly good head on his shoulders, and like you need a bit of an ego to be a striker. I always think all strikers have an ego, and he kind of has just the right amount, and I think he'll actually thrive on getting whatever stick he gets from the crowd. And I mean, I'm sure he's prepared for it. He's kind of got good support at home in that regard. And given the reaction that we already saw on social media from Sligo Rovers fans, I'm sure he's more than prepared for it. And I think we're all kind of expecting him to score. Like even if he only comes on for like 5 or 10 minutes, you're kind of thinking it's written in the stars, like, you know. And I think everyone will be watching on to see how his season goes. It's obviously going to add a bit more spice on Saturday, and like I hope he does play, like whether it's starting or coming on, because I'd love to see how he does react in that environment. Like it'll be tough for him, but I'm sure like Johnny will manage just fine. He's a professional footballer. He's there to play football, and you know, hopefully the occasion kind of doesn't get to him from his perspective, because he's only a young lad, and you know, he's there to play football, there to develop as a player and to improve his career. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does this season. But like, you know, it had to be playing Sligo Rovers first, didn't it? Like for him, you know, he doesn't even get a chance to settle back into the league, and he's playing his former team. But it will be really interesting to see how that goes. And I would expect he'll probably get stick from Sligo Rovers players as well, you know, because he would know a lot of them too. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Obviously, John Russell now is 6 months into the job in terms of football. Is there a bit of pressure on this season now to kind of maybe kick on, to look at brought a few players from abroad? Like, what's the ambition this season for Sligo Rovers?
Yeah, well, I mean, John would tell you himself that like the pressure is on. I suppose there's always pressure in the job as a manager. He came in last year and things started brilliantly because they were in Europe, and you know, they got those results in Europe against Ballatown somehow, and then beat Motherwell, and that was brilliant. But while all that was going on, the cup was a disaster. They lost to Wexford in the first round, and then they lost league games and kind of fell out of the race for a top 4 spot during that spell. And it was kind of impossible to recover form then when they had those bad results in between. So like he knows, he's very, very aware of the fact that he has to kind of prove, I suppose, I don't want to say prove himself, but he knows that there's pressure on him this year because people will give you a pass or a buy in the first year or the first few months because you haven't even had a full transfer window or whatever. So this is kind of his squad now. And like I've known John for years as a player and kind of as Liam Buckley's assistant manager too. And like he is such a hard worker. He's meticulous about everything. So when he tells you he has done research on these players, he does mean it, because when he brought in Frank Levac from Estonia, people were saying it's a bit of a random one, but John, I think he studied the Estonian league for his pro license. So he's been looking over that side of the world at players, and he kind of, when we were speaking to him today, he spoke at length about budgets and this kind of thing. And I suppose it's always been hard for Sligo Rovers to attract players from Dublin or from Dublin clubs, because they just may not want to live in Sligo when they're used to living in Dublin or whatever, and they've ended up having to kind of pay maybe big money for players, whereas clubs in Dublin may have to pay less. It just depends. But now he's kind of saying, I don't want to blow our budget on players who I see as mediocre players, because there's been a wage inflation in the League of Ireland and all of that. So he's kind of said, we're going to cast the net out far and wide and try and get players from Europe where maybe they won't cost you so much. So that's kind of what he's done. And he knows that you've got 10 new players in your squad. It's going to take a while for that to gel. It might not work immediately, but I think he kind of sees the fact that maybe they've done so much work on preseason programs before they came in, that then when they did come back for preseason, they worked on playing as a team. So I think that's the way he kind of sees things. Europe, top four has to be the aim this year. They have no European football this year. And you know yourselves, like, clubs need Europe for money financially if you want to compete at the top. And without Europe, you kind of nearly need a fluke or something in order to get Europe the following year, because you don't have the same budget, if that makes some kind of sense. So that's the aim. Top four is absolutely the aim, but top four is the aim for nearly every team in the Premier Division, bar a couple, So that's what they're aiming for. We'll just have to see how it goes. It's really hard to predict what Sligo Rovers are going to be like this year.
Who's the player to look out for this season then? Is it going to be a new signing, or is it going to be a familiar face? Maybe someone like Max Mata, maybe to step up more?
Good question, that one. Yeah, like maybe Mata, but like I'm going to say Fabrice Hartman, but that's just because he's kind of been the one I've seen the most and we've heard a lot about him. But I'm kind of looking forward to seeing all of the new players and seeing what they're like, because I like, we all really like the look of Johan Brannefalk. He's kind of an attacking right back. So again, really hard to know, because like these players you mentioned may not even start for the first while. So it'll be a while before we see who like the main man is, and Max Mata could very well be that player to look out for once he kind of settles into filling in as the main striker, but we'll wait and see.
Final question then, Saturday night, as already mentioned, Shamrock Rovers come to town. How do you see the game going?
Tough question. I think Sligo Rovers will be up against it. The atmosphere should be pretty good. I know Shamrock Rovers have been looking for more tickets, but I don't think that's going to happen at this late stage. I'm going to say 2-1 to Shamrock Rovers.
I have to go for a draw at least. Open day of the season.
I know it's the kind of thing where like it could be like a 2-2 or something. But I literally have no idea how it's going to go. I mean, Johnny Kenny's probably going to score, so we'll see.
You going with that prediction as well? There are 2-1 to Rovers.
I'll take that. Why would I disagree with a Sligo Rovers expert? I couldn't possibly do that. So yeah, I take that. The games were Shamrock Rovers, when they last played in the showgrounds, they won 3-1, and it was probably one of the best performances of the season. The scoreline didn't reflect that, but they drew the other game in the showgrounds, and the hoops record down there isn't great. Like it's a mouth-watering tie for the first game of the season. There's no matter who you play, when you're the home team, you get it. It's always one of the biggest crowds of the season. When we look back over when we do our attendance stuff, it's always that first home game of the season. But then when it's like a Shamrock Rovers coming to town who've taken the full allocation, as Jessica said, looking for more, under the lights on a Saturday night. It'll be really good. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be one of those fans in the away end anyway.
Well, one thing I'll just say about this Sligo Rovers team, I don't think there'll be like 3-0 or 4-0 defeats. I mean, it can happen at any stage of the season, but like John Russell isn't the kind of manager who would let that happen, so I think if they do lose games, it will be slightly tighter than that. And I know that kind of sounds like a really sweeping kind of statement to make, but kind of having spoken to him and that, and having seen how annoyed he will be if there's a defeat against a really good team, I just can't imagine them leaking 3-4 goals in a game. Like, we'll wait and see. It depends on what the back five is looking like, but I just don't think they're going to be the kind of team who will roll over and take heavy defeats throughout the season.
Yeah, it looks like a good game to go to on Saturday night. If you haven't got a ticket, go get one. Jessica, thanks as always. We'll chat again soon.
No problem, thank you.
Get in touch. You can email us at extratimelive@gmail.com or tag us on Instagram using the hashtag League of Ireland, or tweet us at Extra Time News.
Let's do it.
And then we turn our attention to Cork City, and like I said, Dylan McConnell's with us. Dylan, how are Cork City looking? Big return to the Premier Division this season. A lot of hype, I suppose, in terms of the league and maybe the city as well. Are they looking well?
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement. I suppose the way they went down, there was a lot of, I suppose, what's the best way to phrase this? There was a lot of uncertainty with how they were relegated. It was on the back of that takeover or failed takeover by Grosvenor Limited. It was in the middle of a pandemic when people couldn't go to matches. And now they're back. Crowds are very, very well. They're promoted as first division winners. And like, the people of Cork have really kind of identified with this team. Just look at the gate receipts the club had last season with over 4,000 or 5,000 people going to some matches. So no, there's a huge buzz going to the game, and a lot of people can't wait for Turner's Cross on Friday evening.
And in terms of the signings, then looking at here, only a couple of faces in the door, but I suppose a bit of Premier Division experience for someone like Tadhg O'Labi coming in, made a bit of excitement there.
Yeah, like Tadhg, I saw him against Treaty United when they played out in Bishopstown. When City played Treaty United out in Bishopstown in January, and he was very good. He plays as a central striker. City tend to play a 3-5-2, so he played up top with, I think, Rory Keating on the day. But he's very, like, he has the pace. Like, what he was doing was they were putting balls into the wings. He was running onto them. He did get caught offside a few times, but like, you expect that with a striker. But like, no, like, that's what they need going up as Premier Division experience, because this is a very young Cork City team. Like, I was only going through the team earlier on myself, and like the likes of Joe O'Brien, Whitmarsh, Cian Bargery, Cian Murphy, Josh Unahan, they're all under the age of 22. So like, it's quite a young core in the Cork City team. I think even Jimmy Corcoran, who will more likely be the starting goalkeeper, he's under the age of 22 as well. So it's a very young core Cork City team. So that Premier Division experience is vital. And there's the three lads as well they brought in from Sweden. So that really kind of gives them more experience, because they're used to playing in the top flight in Sweden and the second division over there as well.
Just before you jump in, I just want to let the Cork City fans know that you mentioned Tadhg O'Labi and offsides. That will be a regular occurrence this season. Just to let you know. Just let every Cork City fan know when they're listening, he'll be offside 5 times a game. Sorry, McDara, go ahead.
Dylan, I wanted to ask about the loan signings, because we were talking about it elsewhere with some of the other clubs. Are they season-long loans, do you know, or are they loans that the player can be called back during the year?
So the goalkeeper from Celtic is here until the end of June. And that one is quite interesting, because he came over from Celtic. He was a part of their squad in the UEFA Youth League last autumn. He played against, the most high-profile game was Real Madrid. So it was quite interesting seeing him play in the UEFA Youth League against Real Madrid, and then out in Bishopstown in the bog on a lashing rain day in January against Treaty United. So that was quite interesting. So he's the most high-profile one, but he's here until the end of June. But what's the most interesting thing about his signing is the fact that he's expected to be called up to the England squad for the Under-20 World Cup in May. So there's a genuine question mark of, well, he was brought in, but he could be sent up. He could be off, I think it's in Indonesia, the tournament, which is on the other side of the world, essentially. So like, they could be losing him a lot sooner than they think. So they also brought in Matt Healy, which I think is a season-long loan deal. I'm not going to say 100% of that, but Matt Healy is an important player in midfield. Like last Friday against Cove Ramblers in the 1-1 draw, he played in midfield with Barry Coffey and Aaron Bulger, and that's expected to be the core midfield group this season. There's also Ethan Verry coming alone as well from Bohemians, and he actually scored a hat-trick against Castleview in the Munster Senior Cup quarter-final 2 weeks ago. And like, you can't really read into that too much, because for people who don't know Cork, Castleview is up the north side of the city. It's famously windy up there. It was a rainy night. Their Munster Senior League team, City had a mismatched team of under-19s breaking through and players looking to get a game. But like, he was still quite good. He took his goals quite well. But like, again, you can't say, yeah, he is like what Sean Maguire was because Sean Maguire's first appearance was also in the Munster Senior Cup competitively, and Maguire didn't look that great that day against Rockmount, and City were even beaten in penalties that day by the Munster Senior League side. So like, yeah, I think off the top of my head it's 3 loan players, but they're not dependent on them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, looking at the players that they've retained this year, I suppose one of the players that was really standing out in the first is last year, if you're just watching from this year, is Barry Coffey, and he looks like a really talented boy.
Yeah, like Coffey, he arrived midway through 2021 and it was like a hand-to-glove fit, him and Cork. And which is, I suppose, he kind of regenerated the forward line in Cork, to be brutally honest. Like, the team was struggling to score goals back in 2021 and 2020. Like, we in Cork was collectively, there was a lot of sense of frustration because there was a lot of change in the club in terms of the forward line and up front. Like, I remember even back in 2019, they brought in Darragh Rainsford, Matt Smith, was it Liam Nash? They tried different combinations. Then Barry Coffey came, and it was like the team just seemed to settle and click. And you could see collectively around the people involved with the club, around the city, that they were getting at the sport team that was scoring goals. Like when Barry Coffey scored a hat-trick against Athlone Town last August in Turner Cross. And he has joined a strong midfield coherent. He likes playing a 3-5-2. He switched to that last year after an 0-0 draw in Longford last March. And with the 3-5-2, he plays alongside Aaron Bolger and Matt Heaney. Keane Coleman can also slot in there, but he prefers playing in defence. He has admitted himself in interviews. So with Barry Coffey, he was a hugely important player last year. So I think is probably the biggest season of his young career, because he's now stepping up into the League of Ireland Premier Division, where he'll be playing the likes of Derry City, Shamrock Rovers, St. Pat's, Dundalk. Like, this will be, like, I suppose, the make or break season of his career.
McDara might actually jump in this one. A player obviously you'd be familiar with in terms of for the Cardiff Saves, Aaron Bolger, another young player that, well, young I say he is young, he's 23, but he could be another player that might have a big season this year with Cork City.
Yeah, he played at Shamrock Rovers as a 16-year-old. I think it was Pat Fenlon maybe gave him his debut. I think against Cork City in a game that City hammered Rovers at Tal, if I have that right. Went to the UK and it just didn't work out for him. He's come back into the league, but a really good player, quite an aggressive player, but very creative in the middle of midfield, and somebody that can kind of unpick defenses with passes. So yeah, I don't know how he'll get on. Like I don't know how he'll get on now back with in the Premier Division with Cork City, but has bundles of potential. It'd be great to see if he could actually show that for City this season.
Yeah, like, he's a real fan's favourite down here. Like, ask anyone associated with the club, he's a real fan's favourite. Like, I know the stereotype, but like, he can do all the things that you want from a midfielder. He can tackle, win the ball, distribute the ball. He can link up play. He can do all of that, and he can score goals as well. Like, last season, there was an evening where Galway United were playing Cove Ramblers, and I think they were 4-0 up. They beat Cove well enough in St. Coleman's Park, and City were 1-0 down from the first minute up in Athlone. And he scored a 93rd minute winner that night for the club. So, like, it's ever since then, he's kind of really been firmly established as not just a fan favorite down here, but like as a really important component in Colin Healy's team. He is, I suppose, for want of a better word, the engine in the centre of the pitch.
And will they be looking to Rory Keaton again to provide the spark up front?
Yeah, like, and the good thing is, like, even if Rory Keating isn't firing, they still have Cian Murphy who can play that role. Joshie Hoonahan played as a striker as well last Friday evening against Cove Ramblers. Ethan Varian as well can slot in as well if needed. He just can't play against Bohemians on the open night of the season because they're his parent club. You also can throw in there as well Tunde as well. So, like, Rory Keating, he was phenomenal last year for City in the first division. He got some important goals, especially against Waterford and Cove Ramblers. But, like, again, there was a step up to the Premier Division. You get less time on the ball. Defenders are a lot more experienced. I'm going to do Shamrock Rovers, for example. That team's experience of playing in European football. Same with Dundalk. Look at Derry City. They have like Admiral Riley, who'll be standing in front of a defence, marshalling it. You'll have less time on a ball, but like even if it doesn't work out with Rory Keating, you still have other strikers to step up, which is ideal for Cork. That's not just built around one striker, which was, I wouldn't say a mistake, but which was something that happened with the club previously. When you look at Maguire back in 2017 and how goals dried up when he left.
Just a word on, I suppose, off the field matters. Obviously, it's been rumbling in the background, like you kind of mentioned earlier on, in terms of the ownership and where they're going to sell. There was obviously Grosvenor and that kind of failed bid and whatever happened there. But finally, this year, it has gone through a new owner in place, Dermot Usher. Is that a positive move for the club, you think? Or has that gone down well? I know initially there was kind of the fear of going back into private ownership because obviously the hassles happened there previously. But what's the vibe in terms of the fans aspect, or outlook rather, on the new owner?
Like, it's very positive down here. Like, I suppose the people of Cork have been quite burned previously by private ownership. The club was nearly wound up in 1994, 1996, and that led to a new period of ownership. There was Brian Lennox. Even Brian Lennox was in charge when the club won the League of Ireland Premier Division back in 2005. In 2006, they got the tax winding order. So, like, there's nothing to do with Brian Lennox, by the way. He was a fantastic owner. He's very well loved down here. So, like, then, given the issues then, they went on with Tom Collin and Arcaga back in 2009, 2010, which quite well documented in Neil Horgan's books. For us, and the fan ownership model was seen as kind of the ideal way to run and manage the club. But I suppose that then was met with its own limits, especially with the changing economic circumstances in Irish football. If you look at Shamrock Rovers having the investment from Dermot, or O'Brien, the same shareholder from Celtic, you've Gareth Kelleher.
Dermot Desmond, yeah.
Dermot Desmond. You've Gareth Kelleher at St. Pat's. You've Shelbourne were in talks with Southampton at one point for getting investment. You've Derry City's owner is now a billionaire. So you can see that there's a lot more money going into, like, there's a lot more money coming to the league, a lot more fresh investment. You've Waterford FC, even another in the first division. They have funds the same owner as Fleetwood Town. So, like, being a fan-owned club does have its limitations. So Dermot Usher coming in, I suppose, gives City that, like, financial support that they wouldn't necessarily have had underneath for us. So that's one thing. But Dermot Usher, I've spoken to him. He seems like a really great guy. He's also written talks as well about, like, improving the match day experience in Turner's Cross, and he's really got involved in all aspects of the club. He's met with the Cork City Exiles. He had a season launch event last Thursday. He's talking to everyone associated with the club, from, like, people like myself, a journalist, to supporters, to he met up with the women's team just before Christmas when they had a kickabout, just get to know them. So he's really taken on board everything to do with the club, which is something, as I suppose, as someone from Cork, just as who is a stakeholder in Cork football, it's fantastic to see for someone who now privately owns the club, given, like, the previous history of private owners and Cork City.
Just a word on the manager, I suppose, Dylan Colin Healy. From the outside looking in, looks like he's done a really good job in terms of where they were in 2020, getting relegated, to steering the ship and building a new team, and obviously getting back up now, second time asking. It looks like he's done a really good job.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, at the risk of getting too technical, sometimes certain managers get things right with, I suppose, it could be one signing, it could be you might just get lucky with the positional change. But with Healy, he's very tactically aware, and he knows what he knows what the team needs. Like, I was reading recently about an interview with him about how the first division title was won, and he started out the year playing a 4-4-2 formation. That wasn't working after the draw in Longford. He switched to the 3-5-2, and that ended up producing like 12 goals in 4 games. I remember they beat Waterford in that run. It was a 2-0 hammering, if you get me, in Turner's Cross that night. And I remember last September they played Longford Town in Turner's Cross. 3-5-2 wasn't working. Longford were 1-0 up, so he switched to a 4-2-3-1, and the game finished off in a 2-2 draw. So, like, he knows himself tactically what needs to be done, which is a very big thing for himself as a manager, which is a very good thing for him as a manager, because it's not just you get 4-4-2, you just got a team up, because you often see teams, have a very good team in first division, blow things away, just have a bigger budget. But he wasn't working with one of the biggest budgets in the league. He was up against Drogheda United, he was up against Waterford, and there's points last season where Drogheda United held a 2-point lead, I think, at the top of the table before they played City at the end of May in AMDC Park, and City had to win if they were to go top going to the mid-season break. City went up, they won through a Matt Healy goal from outside the box. So they held their nerve from there on in the title race. I know they were helped by Galway throwing away points in a few games, but still, City had to go up to Galway, they had to get the result, they had to win. So he's quite tactically aware, and he knows how to keep the teams, I suppose, he knows how to get get them to deliver in big moments like that game in Galway. So I'm excited now to see how he handles the step up now to Premier Division football.
Who's the player then to watch out for this season for Cork City?
Aaron Bolger, he was the most important player for the club last year in the first division. Like going back to what I said, he can tackle, he can win the ball, he can distribute the ball, and he has an eye for goal himself, like he showed against Athlone. Like I'm excited to see how he steps up, especially because I imagine there's probably, and like Macdara, you probably have more to say about this, there might be some level of he has a point to prove over how things worked out at Shamrock Rovers. Like that game you mentioned with the hammering against Cork, I think that was a 5-0 win in the FAI Cup. Because I remember Aaron coming on that night. I think he was only just 16 years old. But like there might be some level of like he has a point to prove. Because again, he's from Dublin, isn't he? He's from the Leinster region. So like when you're playing up in that area, I'd imagine there's a certain level like you want to make your name known there. So like ignoring just from his abilities, there's a certain level of he has that point to prove, and I'm excited to see how he deals with that.
Looking ahead then to Friday, big game, Turner's Cross, Bowes coming to town, first game back in Premier Division. How do you see it going?
I honestly God can't call it. Like Shells came down in 2020, their first game back as first division winners. They beat Cork City with Lake O from Clare and Kilduff into the shed end. I remember that vividly. Remember that. Then they came up last year. They lost the Patch. They lost the Patch 3-1 at home in Talca Park. But like Bowes, I've seen Twitter Bowes fans talking about they're having defensive issues. So like but City, they could get stage fright. I remember last year, one of City's first big home games of the season in front of over 5,000 fans against Galway. The Galway kind of comfortably sat out the game and won 1-0. It was almost like City had a dose of stage fright that night. And Turner's Cross playing in front of that big crowd. And like there will be over 5,000 in Turner's Cross that evening. So like you have to factor that into things. Like because there's a huge home crowd in coming to Turner's Cross, I imagine Bowes mightn't be too happy with how last season went. But it coming down to Cork, they'll have a sizable away support. There is that thing about like it's them against us, but the Bowes coming down as well, so they'll want to win. And Bowes have a good record in Turner's Cross. Their last visit here in 2020, they won 1-0. So like they do have a good record against Cork City and Turner's Cross at times in the season. So it is quite an open game. I could see it finishing as a draw, but like again, with it being Cork City's first game back in the Premier Division, that team would be fired up for it, especially with the support. But it could end up in stage fright, or it could end up with the team winning 2 or 3-0. It genuinely is a very hard game to call, but I reckon it could be a draw.
Well, you got a score draw, 1-1?
I'd say 1-1. That's my best guess is 1-1 draw. Knowing my luck now, I'll probably finish off with 5-5 or something, but like I was going to comfortably say 1-1.
Yeah. Dinner Ferris coming on, we'll chat again soon.
Extratime.ie. Get in touch through Facebook or tweet us at Extra Time News. League of Ireland football is our passion.
And now it's time to chat about Dundalk. I'm delighted to say James Rogers alongside me. James, how are you?
All good. Luke, how are you?
Yeah, grand. Look forward to the new season.
Yeah, getting there. It's great to have like things like this because it sort of whets the appetite for it. You know, I think it's been probably a slow build up. I think this year, but I think this week now it'll really, as we count down the kickoff or whatever, it'll really get going and the excitement will build.
What's the mood like around Oriel Park?
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, you know, in one sense, you're looking forward to the new season. I think with all due respect, UCD, the opening night, is a bit of a funny one because you don't have that bit of banter with fans or whatever that you maybe have. Like, I think like 12 months ago, we were playing Derry on the opening night, and a lot of, you know, old faces coming back. There was, you know, endless narratives that you could build up. This one, obviously, a lot more under the radar. I think UCD in general are probably more under the radar than any other team in the league. So yeah, it probably has been a bit quieter. Even Dundalk haven't played. They'll have a 10-day gap, you know, from the end of their pre-season matches going into the match. So it's been, you know, the last weekend just gone by there. They weren't playing, so it's been quiet. I suppose it's one of those things once everything gets going, it'll probably build up again. But yeah, I think everyone's just sort of looking forward to it now. It's been a long winter. It's always a long off season, and just looking forward to get going again.
In terms of incomings and outgoings, we're kind of just chatting off earlier briefly, just in terms of like the kind of maybe the lack of players coming in the door. Is that the best way of putting it?
Yeah, like I suppose that would be my concern. And look, it's only an opinion, but I just don't think that the squad is big enough now. We're talking on Monday night. Stephen O'Donnell says he wants to bring in 2 more before the start of the season. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. Obviously, the window goes for about a week after that as well. But as things stand, I was just looking at obviously the likes of Sportsfile were doing squad pictures the other day, and Dundalk had 22 in their squad picture. Of those, 4 of them were goalkeepers, so that leaves you with 18 outfield players. One of them's unlikely to play any part anytime soon due to injury. There's a few others carrying more minor knocks. So effectively you're left with 17 outfield players to do for the season. He's brought in 5 new signings, all from outside the league. I suppose probably the most high profile one is Louis Ainsley from Blackburn Rovers, who has 35 caps for Gibraltar and will be playing should be playing against Ireland, I'd imagine, twice this year. And in the Euro Championship qualifiers, he's already played against Ireland twice before as well in his international career. So he's a sort of a versatile player, probably wants to play centre half. Brought in Hayden Muller from Millwall, another sort of defender, best known as a centre half. There's been Conor Malley, who was briefly on the books of Middlesbrough. He's a midfielder. Archie Davies, who's a fullback, was on the books of Brighton years ago. He's joined from Aldershot. And Cameron Elliott, who is a striker who's joined from the Scottish 5th tier, so had a great goal scoring record there, but it remains to be seen what the step up is there. So we probably haven't seen enough of them to judge any of them, whether it be good or bad signings yet, and time will tell on that one. But I suppose 8 players have gone out, and look, even if he gets the 2 more he wants, he's still in theory down 1 on the squad from last year, which had its injury problems, struggled at times, because of that, because midway through the year, like I think in the summer, just after the break, Dundalk had beaten Shamrock Rovers and went, I think it was 5 points behind with a game in hand. I think that was briefly down to 4 at one point, and then injury sort of derailed it to the point where they were maybe clinging on, trying to get into Europe, and I just think that would be my concern, that just the numbers aren't there. That if there's injuries, which there will be, when there's suspensions, because every team will suffer from that there's not maybe enough there to go with that, because I think Stephen O'Donnell is on record, towards the end of last year saying he wanted a bigger squad, and for whatever reason that hasn't happened. So I think that would be the disappointment, I suppose, from, even if he wouldn't say it on the record, I think that would be privately his disappointment, that he's gone into the season maybe a bit lighter than he'd have liked.
Yeah, that's kind of a pattern now with Pat Craig and Steve O'Donnell, that partnership. They always seem to go into Scotland looking at players. I know even my own experience, Martin Rennie, who didn't pay off. They looked at Stephen Bradley then last year with Hibs. So they seem to have a pattern there, looking at the Scottish market and bring players in.
Yeah, well, I think Padge Craig, he's a Scottish wife, and I think he's still over and back a bit. He does live locally, but he's over and back a bit, obviously, and he must have his ear to the ground on it. I did speak to Cammy Elliott, after one of the pre-season matches, and he did say it was Padge who initially identified him. He had a really good goal scoring record for East Kilbride, but again, it's how you transfer that to what is a step up. To be fair to him. Now, listen, no one will remember this, if in the long scheme, but like he got 3 goals in pre-season for Dundalk, so it's a decent enough start in that regard. But I suppose it only counts when you do it in the real thing.
Yeah, well, maybe it could be the Gary Twig, maybe, and they're fine. Just in terms of the players, they've kept them retained. Obviously, Nathan Shepherd staying was a big plus for the club. Had a great first season. Looking at other players as well, in terms of maybe Alfie Lewis, obviously came in the back end of last season. Those 2 in particular could be key this season with the knock.
Yeah, huge, because I thought Nathan was really, really good. There was a lot of spotlight on him this time last year because he was coming in and replacing, goalkeeping position had been a sort of problem position for Dundalk in the season before with Alessio Bibi and that. And as a result, there was a lot of focus on him. He's not the tallest for a goalkeeper. It certainly doesn't seem it. And a lot of focus on how he would command his area and all that, but he was sensational for me. He won the Players Player of the Year, the Supporters Player of the Year, made, like, if you go into your stats, he prevented more goals than any goalkeeper in, like, the top half of the table, and he was vital for Dundalk, and like that, Alfie Lewis, look, we've seen what he can do before. He was obviously at Pats, but I thought he was really coming into his own towards the back end of last year. Obviously hadn't played a lot for Plymouth, so I think he'll almost be like a new signing this year, and it'll definitely help him that he's, towards the end of last year, he was playing without the likes of maybe people he'd hoped to have around him this year, like Greg Sloggett got injured, Robbie Benson got injured. I'm probably forgetting a host more. There was a load of injuries for the Dundalk, but certainly in that midfield area, he was missing a lot of sort of people he'd hoped to have alongside him this year, and he could really flourish in that regard with the full pre-season behind him.
Yeah, you mentioned there about the kind of the squad, and it's looking a bit light in terms of, even Stephen Doll mentioned back out of last season, of wanting to get those couple of extra players in. Is there any particular reason to why there's maybe a lack of transfer activity, or is it just they haven't found the right targets?
It's probably multifaceted in terms of I think Dundalk, probably isn't the attraction it once was, in terms of when Dundalk were top dogs by and large. If they come in for you, they could probably outbid most of the league. I don't think that's obviously no longer the case, and I think the pitch is a factor, and facilities probably a factor as well when you're weighing up where to go. With all due respect to Oriel Park, it probably isn't it's not Wembley, and I think as well, the league has shifted. I think if you weigh it up over the past sort of 12-18 months, the amount of players from our league that have gone to England, and I think even when Stephen O'Donnell was a player, which isn't that long ago, or even when he started management, which is less time ago, I don't think those sort of moves were happening. I think there's been, I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone, I've seen players going across the water this winter that, if they came to your club, would you be overly excited? I don't know. That's just my opinion, but you can't begrudge anyone that moves. But as a result, I think it's been harder for everyone to recruit in terms of within the league, and I think that's been the proof's in the pudding. The Dundalk haven't signed anyone from within the league, so it's not ideal. Obviously, I don't think the money's there that once was, and the wage structure is obviously a lot tighter, and for that reason, I think it's been that bit harder to attract players than maybe the Dundalk are just at a level that everyone else used to be at, but I think maybe as fans we've been spoiled over the years, where generally if you went to target a player, you normally got them for many years there.
In terms of Steve O'Donnell, his first season in charge, I think it was probably in agreement with most fans. They had a good year. I think that they'll be looking at this year. Is there any way they can build on that now? Is there a way that is third realistic again this season?
I'd take third right now if it was offered to me. I think Derry and Rovers should be ahead of the rest. I don't think there's a great deal between the teams sort of maybe below that. Maybe there'll be one or two that you'd say will sort of battle the drop, and if anyone can sort of put a run of form together, I think they could be in contention for Europe, and easier said than done, of course. But I think he in many ways he probably overachieved last year, because I don't think many would have expected Dundalk to be briefly in a title race, and then effectively joined second to finish level on points with Derry, which was an incredible achievement when you consider the budgets between the two squads. So I think that brings its own pressures too, because when you do well, keeping it up is difficult. As I say, my fears would be that he doesn't have the depth there again. If anything, it's lighter than maybe last year at this moment in time. So that would be the one sort of minor concern that you'd have. But I think if he could get Europe again, I think that would be a fantastic year for him, because I think it'll be very difficult for anyone, in my opinion, to compete with Derry and Rovers.
Yeah, I think we're on a kind of agreement there too. Just in terms of pre-season, then, have you seen much pre-season? Has anyone stood out so far? Any new signs looking like they've settled in?
Yeah, it's been difficult to judge. I've seen a couple of matches, all right. I tend not to try and read too much into pre-season because I remember one of the players who signed last year is no longer at the club. I remember thinking he was up at a game in Galway and he looked like a young Ryan Giggs, and I don't think I saw that again throughout the year. But yeah, no, there's been flashes. Like, I mean, Conor Malley's looked good. Like, he looks like a player who, you know, he's played a handful of matches for Middlesbrough in the past, so he looks like a player who, you know, you could see why he was at that level. I suppose it's translating it. Obviously, Cammy Elliott's one who will be intriguing just because of the story involved, like coming from, you know, effectively part-time football in the lower regions of Scotland, and if he can become, as you say, like a Gary Twigg, it would be amazing. He's done, as I say, he's done well in pre-season. I wasn't at 2 of the matches he scored in, but seems to have a good striker's instinct from what I have seen. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. But I think the big thing for Dundalk this year, I think, is going to be trying to keep players fit. You know, the injuries they had towards the end of last year, in particular to the likes of Patrick Hooban, who's the new club captain. I think keeping the likes of him fit is going to be massive, because he's probably one of the most influential players, I think, in the league in terms of what he gives to a team. And, you know, I think everyone misses their star players, but I think there's other clubs more equipped to do without someone for a period of time. I think the Duck really struggled for goals without him last year, and what he brings to the overall team as well, because his hold-up play, his link play, etc., is exceptional at times.
Looking ahead then to Friday, I mentioned they're playing UCD up in Oriel Park. I'd imagine we're going to go for a home win. It seems like the obvious choice.
Yeah, like it's a difficult one. I was thinking about this all week, and it's one of those matches you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. Where if the Duck go out and win 3-0 on Friday, well, it was sort of expected of you, and if you lose, it's crisis already. But yeah, like, I don't know. UCD are a bit of a funny team, I think, to have on the opening night, because like, they're playing Collingwood Cup at the moment, and we're recording this on Monday. Did a 10-0 win today in that, so they're through to the semi-final. So they're definitely playing on Tuesday, and if they win that, they're definitely playing on Wednesday. So I think they're probably a wee bit more ahead of everyone in terms of their just natural match fitness, because they've been prepping for that. They go a lot more under the radar than other teams for obvious reasons, like their friendlies, etc., aren't massively advertised on the likes of their socials and that. So I think they're a dangerous opposition to have on the opening night. You know, I think most people expect them to struggle. I think a good year for them would be maybe avoiding the drop, but I think there's always a shock on the opening night somewhere. You know, a bit of a surprise or upset. I'm hoping it just doesn't happen at Oriel Park, but I think it's yeah, I think it's I wouldn't want to be overly confident on it either.
So what's the score prediction then? A tie 2-1, 3-1?
Yeah, I'd take a 2-1. Go on.
2-1 win. All right, James, thanks for always coming on. We'll chat again during the season.
No problem at all, Luke. Thanks very much. Cheers.
You're listening to ExtraTime.ie. League of Ireland football is our passion.
And now we'll look ahead to possibly the new crowning champions in waiting, Derry City. Glad to have Kevin McLaughlin here in the Derry Journal. Kevin, how are you?
Fine.
I suppose the first question is, what's the mood like around the city after a good win last weekend in the President's Cup?
It is. Everybody's sort of now counting down the days. Like everybody in the league, to be fair, the first game of the season gives everybody that they can't wait for everything to get back up and running again. Look, it's a big season for Derry. Rory Higgins knows that. The players know that. The fans know that. But there are also a lot of fans that are realistic. Shamrock Rovers going for 4 in a row. Have only added one permanent signing in Liam Burt. Few loan signings. Their squad very, very much title winners that are in it. The FAA Cup winners, European campaign. All these type of players are all in their squad. They're still the side they catch. But I think it'll not just be Derry, but we're challenging them this year, to be brutally honest with you.
Do you think the other teams in the league this year that challenge the title as well?
Well, I just think that, you know, particularly from Rovers' point of view, the Dublin derbies, I think Bohemians, you know, says it's always the case. And St. Pat's have strengthened well this year too. Bohemians under Declan Devine. Declan you go through his career, first season particularly, always does well. He's recruited well too. He knows a player. He gets teams very well coached. So no, look, I think particularly Bowes and St. Pat's got up there. Dundalk will be slightly concerning. I've seen Stephen O'Donnell this week, match against Shelbourne, was called off the Leinster Cup. I heard him sort of saying that 8 players are gone. It's 5 players have come in. 3 games in a week will struggle because the squad's not good enough. So they mightn't be as hot as they were last year. I actually thought they had a great season last year considering where they were and what he had to do. So I still think it'll be Derry, Pats, Bows, and Rovers, to be honest with you, the 4 big teams.
How significant do you think the win the President's Cup was last weekend, or do you think the team or the club read too much into that?
I think the fans read a lot into it. I don't think Rory and the players read that much. Now, don't get me wrong. You're playing Shamrock Rovers. It's a packed house at the Brandywell. It's you want to go out and win it, and they did that. They did that quite comfortably, to be honest with you. Rovers brought on sort of who's who of the league at halftime with Jack Byrne and Graham Burke and whatever. So it just tells you that the squad that they had, plus the squad that they had sitting on the staff from Sean Gannon to Roland Finn. We know all this. Derry City, to be fair, also had a who's who sitting in the stand from Cameron McJanet to Cameron Dunnigan to Patrick McElhinney. So look, it's going to be a proper ding-dong. Yes, it was nice they won it, and but I don't think it was any of this case of laying down a marker or anything like that.
In terms of transfer activity, how do you think the club has done the transfer window this winter?
I think they have. I think they're trying to get a couple more possibly over the line before Friday. I think they're looking for a centre back as cover, and I think they're trying to get Ireland international, under 21 international, Ollie O'Neill in over the door and get him over the line, I should say. O'Reilly has been sensational. He's only played a couple of games. We knew how good he was at St. Pat's last year, but he's really come in and hit the ground running. So I think he'll be a big player this year. And Colin Whelan, we sort of have to wait and see what he's going to be like. We know the pedigree that he has, but obviously he's coming back from the Crusade, so it'll be a case of wait and see there regarding him.
Yeah, and a couple of players have come in as well. You might be able to touch on Ben Doherty from Larne, I think, and is he what position he plays? He's come from the Northern Irish League.
Ben's a very clever signing. He can play, as he did there on Friday night, he can play left back, he can play in midfield, he can play high in the left. Cultured left foot will get his fair share of assists and goals. But like every player in the Derry City team, it's making sure once you get in there, you stay in there and getting a regular run of games. Once everybody's fit, it's going to be a very hard selection headache that Rory Higgins is going to have to try and keep everybody happy and choose the right 11 each week.
And how strong do you think this Derry City squad is now compared to previous squads in, say, last 10 years?
It's up there. There's no denying it. It's up there. It's as good as probably the 2006 squad that Stephen Keaney had assembled and done so well in Europe and lost the league in goal difference to Shelbourne. So look, it's up there. There's no denying it. But it's basically because he hadn't had to bring in that many this year. A lot of the big players were signing long-term deals and still are. They're settled. They know what style of play Rory wants to play. The fans are right behind them as the cup final sort of showed with 20,000 plus fans travelling to Aviva, and that has ignited everything again. You can see the majority of people in the town, supporters, young and old, are all wearing merchandise, the bobble hats, the quarter zips. It's all Derry City colours, so it just tells you that this city's ready for a real big 2023.
Yeah, do you think that winning the cup final has maybe added that extra expectation now for the season?
It has. There's no denying it. But to be honest with you, it may have done that with the fans, but it's done it with the players. The players are all saying the exact same thing about title. We have to be up there. We've had it well. The springboard and won the cup. We want that taste of success again. And everybody is definitely in the zone and wanting to go up one step further regarding the league. But the players also know it's going to be a hard one.
Yeah, it seems even from the outside looking in that the fans have really bought in rather to the project with Rory Higgins. Is that seems to be the case?
It is. The minute Phil Doherty appointed Rory to replace Declan Devine, he did say to him, look, I want to try and win this league title within 2 or 3 years. First year, to be fair to Rory, where he got them was second from bottom. He hadn't won a game. He got them on the Europe in his first season. Well, I say first season, 7-8 matches on. The second season, finished second, qualified for Europe again, and obviously won the FAA Cup. So look, he's building a squad, he's building a project. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes at the club that is good to see, particularly at the youth end. So there's a lot of sort of foundations being laid for the future, and that's what the club and every club in Ireland needs to do.
Would that be, you just mentioned Europe there, would that be one aspect maybe where Rory Higgins and the squad looking to improve this year? Obviously get knocked out last year, the Regan in the first round of the Upper Conference League. Would that be a part maybe they look to maybe improve on this season?
It is. I don't know, haven't done sort of season review this week, or last week I should say. Patrick McElhinney was chatting about that straight away, saying, we want to win the cup again, we want to improve in the league, and we certainly want to improve in Europe, because Europe was a big disappointment. They know themselves. They were, to be fair, they got a tasty tie in Riga. There was a lot easier clubs you could have maybe got, so they were a bit unlucky with the draw. But they know themselves. Europe for any team has so much money and so much potential. They gather money basically. So yeah, that's going to be one of the targets this year. I think if you probably asked Rory and the players, they would say league title, do well in Europe as the two main priorities, and the cup would be the third, obviously.
In terms of hitting those key targets, how important is the fitness of Paddy McElhinney and Michael Duffy keeping fit this season?
Well, Patrick, I said to him at the time, one of the performances of the season was last year down at Finn Park. It was during water break and stuff like that, so he was close to where the media was sitting, and he grabbed the squad and basically says, right, let's go. They were 1-0 down. The derby, the weather was beautiful, and he just basically grabbed the team in the back of his back and just carried them over the line. They won 2-1. Graydon scored and McIntyre led on, but it was just his never say die attitude that you could sort of see. There's the title winner in him. There's what this squad's needed. Michael Duffy, look, everybody knows how good he is. It was an absolute disaster for Derry last year when he picked up the injury so early on against Drogheda, and his season was effectively over. The cup final was probably his best performance, and everybody's seen what he did there when I think the two Shelbourne lads are still looking for him as he skipped by them and stuck at the top corner and hit the bar. So no, look, it's big players, but to be fair, the squad has got so many big players. I think O'Reilly will be a big player this season. You have Dunnigan out at the minute. Last year was, in my opinion, Derry's player of the year, Cameron Dunnigan. Brian Myers, another big season for him. It's sort of his second season in top flight football. I know I wouldn't say he'd be smarting, but I know down at the Football Writers Awards he finished sort of runner-up behind Alan Manis. If he can overtake Alan Manis and be goalkeeper of the year, Derry will not be far away.
Have you seen much of the team pre-season? How are they looking?
I've seen quite a bit. They had a couple of games called off. Well, they had one game effectively called off out in Spain. The pitch was waterlogged, which obviously you would go to Spain, warm weather, training and about be raining. But yeah, they were meant to play Aalborg, and that was called off, which was disappointing. But they put a lot of work on and out there. They played another friendly out there, and they lost 1-0. But it was at the game, and they played well that day in the first half. Conceded a disappointing goal. They played a few other friendlies. They beat Van Harps, they beat Institute, they drew with Carrick Rangers, and then obviously you had the President's Cup. So they're shaping up nicely, and yourself, it's just sort of getting yourself ready for the first game. That's what it's all about, regardless of what, it might be a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. All players are just focused on the first game against St. Pat's.
Yeah, and who's the one to watch then for Derry this season? Is there a new signing or one of the state players there last season? Who would you want to watch in your eyes?
Oh, well, look, yourself. You can talk about Patsy, you can talk about Mickey Duffy.
just for his energy and what he's bringing to the team. And he's only been here a wet week and played a couple of games, but O'Reilly, I think, could be a big player this year. There's no doubt about it. And I think Jimmy McGonigal will have a wee sort of bit between the teeth with Collie Whelan, itching to get on there, and Jimmy will be like, I want to keep you out. I finished top scorer last year. So there is competition for places, but if I had to name my sort of mass the colours, I would say O'Reilly would be the man I would be sort of excited about seeing this season.
Yeah, he's going back to his old club on Friday night. The interesting game, obviously the open day of the season, Derry. How do you see the game going? Away the Pats, they had 2 good wins there last year. Do you see them picking up another win to kick off the season?
Well, it's a big game, as you say. First game of the season, everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a lower league team or whatever, you fancy yourselves. It's the first game, everybody's excited. I would say Richmond will be a sellout. Derry have a decent record at Richmond, and the pitch suits them. In fact, their best performance of the season last year was down at Inchicore, and they battered Pats that night. And it could be a lot more. It could have been a lot more that night. This could be a tasty one. It's going to be difficult. Obviously, having not seen some Pats, but look, I think Derry might just nick it. I think just with the form that they're coming on with, they might just nick it. But I would not be surprised if it was a draw, to be honest with you.
So what's going to be your score prediction then for first day of the season?
I'm going to go 2-1 Derry.
2-1 Derry. Okay. Adam Riley, hopefully doesn't score though. I'm a Pats man here, so hopefully he doesn't score in the game. Kevin, fair enough coming on. We'll chat again soon.
No problem.
And now we're going to turn our focus to Drogheda United. Let's first have a listen to their manager, Kevin Doherty, at the league launch last week.
And yes, I'm here with Drogheda United manager Kevin Doherty. Kevin, how have preparations been the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, the last couple of weeks in particular been good. We played some decent games. Dundalk last week was a proper game. It's essentially a pre-season friendly, but the Jim Malone Cup was a good atmosphere. Both teams were trying to win it, so it was, it gave the players a bit of a glimpse into what probably it's going to be like during the season. So it's going okay. Yeah,
and obviously your second year in charge as well, so obviously been a bit of change really. Maybe some players coming and going, but it seems to be more or less the same kind of spine of the squad.
Yeah, well, we have lost. I mean, if you talk about spine, we lost Keith Cowan, we lost Dave Massey. But we are, like Chris Lyons was the centre forward, so that's right down the middle of the pitch. Darren Hughes has gone back to Rovers. Andrew Quinn was the centre half, so probably have lost a fair few. But look, it's the nature of it. One thing we can't offer lads is full-time football, and that's why Andy went to Shelbourne and Dean Williams went to Bow. So look, it is what it is. We just have to try and probably rebuild again. Like, not so much to the same extent as last year, but to a certain extent. So but we'll see what it takes us, but we're all looking forward to it.
Obviously, it seems the Premier Division seems to be a bit of a different beast this year. Obviously, just yourselves and UCD are the part-time team, so it's obviously going to make it quite difficult for you.
Yeah, look, it will be. It was difficult last year. Only Finn Harte were the only other part-time team, but look, you see what happened. There's no coincidence. I mean, we're 8th, 9th and 10th last year, so look at this. It's a big advantage being full-time, and particularly not just the full-time, it's the resources that they have. So look, it is what it is. We just have to try and get ourselves right, get going as soon as we can. But a lot of new players, a lot of young players, it'll take us a little bit of time to get going maybe, and almost learn on the job at times. But look, it is. As I said, we're more than aware that we're in for a tough fight, but it's a fight that we're willing to go and have a go at.
Yeah, I suppose it's probably not a bad thing either. I suppose going, maybe seeing the league go more full time as well, because obviously in terms of, I suppose, just the overall quality of the league, everything improves, isn't it?
100%. Like, again, it's no coincidence the best teams in the world are all full time. Like, I mean, you don't see Liverpool or Man United, they're not part time. So look, it's what you should be. It's your priority, it's your job, it's what you're supposed to be. But look, unfortunately at the moment that's not us, but hopefully it will be soon. And I know there has been, and people probably get sick of hearing about investment talks, but there is a lot going on, so probably too late for this year, but hopefully in the future it's about building the club to be sustainable and to not for just jumping at the first thing that comes along, because there's a real massive appetite for football in Drogheda. You've seen it, as I said, we played against Dundalk last week and there was a great crowd atmosphere, so hopefully that's the way it'll go over the future.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you've been able to bring the two lads in from Lincoln again, so look, obviously they seem to be two really good additions.
Yeah, look, the two of them played against Dundalk, were very good. It's a good relationship we have with Lincoln now. They saw what we did with Sean and Sam last year, so again, Lincoln were too happy, and they were more than accommodating without getting the lads over, so have to be very pleased with that.
I suppose we've noticed that. I suppose it's kind of quite noticeable, I suppose, in terms of maybe the loan players coming in from England before. Is that maybe just a new thing with Brexit, or is it because of maybe just...
I think they value the league a lot more than they used to. Certainly, like, I know I speak about the club of Lincoln that we're dealing with, they certainly value it. I mean, they've signed a few players from it. They've loaned what's now 4 loans over to the league, so now they value the product, and they value what we can do for them as well, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it didn't sound in the past. Massive budget.
And look, obviously, I know it's probably maybe too early to even start thinking about maybe targets for this season, but is it just simply the aim of surviving again, or?
Ultimately, yeah, of course. But again, you're right, we will try and take it game by game, see where we are after a while. I mentioned already, there is a lot of new players, a lot of young players, a lot of inexperienced players, so as I said, we'll probably have to learn on the job. Well, yeah, look, definitely be the target to be in the league next year.
Yeah, definitely. And look, obviously opening night of the season, obviously going back to your old stomping ground at Tadhg, so look, obviously a special place for you, a special place I suppose in the league, so it's obviously set up to be a great night.
It'll be great, yeah, it'll be great. I'm looking forward to it. I imagine it'll be a good crowd. I was there the other day, said the pitch will be fine, so yeah, really looking forward to it.
And that was the voice there of Drogheda United manager Kevin Doherty. And the follow on, we have David Sheehan here from LMFM to discuss more with Drogheda United. David, how are you?
Not too bad, Luke, yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I suppose we'll get straight into it in terms of the transfers and the players coming in and out. Kevin kind of mentioned there in terms of players and Tom, kind of that upheaval again. It seems to be similar to last year, and kind of a lot of players coming in, a lot of players coming out.
Yeah, I mean, last year, like, they lost. That was the end of their first season back in the Premier Division, which had gone quite well under Tim Clancy, and they lost their whole defence. Really, they lost Conor Kane, Jimmy Brown. They lost David Adamosu. They lost Daniel O'Reilly. They lost Joe Redmond, so they lost their whole defence pretty much, and they had to start again, really. And brought in the likes of Keith Cowan and Evan Weir, who was brilliant for them last year. Evan Weir, young player of the season. Georgie Poynton came in. They brought in then the likes of, a little bit further up the field, the likes of Dale Rooney, Dean Williams, and they did well last year. Like, survival was the goal last year, and they managed to do that. But this season again, lost Andy Quinn, lost Dean Williams, who was the top scorer last year, and then the likes of Dane Massey, Keith Cowan, Darren Nugent as well, I suppose, who's a key player last year for them, did really well, but he was just on loan from Shamrock Rovers, so he was always going to go back. I know they were delighted to have him for the season, and he did really well, as I said, for them. But so they've had to kind of, I think Kevin's having to pull rabbits out of hats here again. They brought Sean Brennan in from UCD, who a lot of League of Ireland fans would be familiar with. He's a really tidy player. So they've him in. They got in Aaron McNally. They got Ben Curtis in from St. Pat's. Conor Keeley as well, a bit of experience, and then they've brought in Adebayoga from Dundalk. They got Charlotte Jones in from Athlone, and then the two lads in from Lincoln City, Alicia Huey and Freddie Draper. So, that Lincoln link up, if I could say that, from last season worked really well for them, with Sam Long and Sean Rowan coming in for half the season. Remains to be seen how long those two lads will be with Drogheda, because Lincoln put out a tweet saying that they would be with Drogheda until the summer, until the off season in the UK. But Kevin spoke to LMFM after the Malone Cup game against Dundalk, and it was put to him that was it a pity that these lads weren't here for the season, and he sort of said, well, nothing's been decided yet, so don't assume that they're just here for the season or for half the season. But he said even if they're only here for 22 games, it'll be better than not having them at all. So yeah, I think a lot of new players, a lot of betting down to be done, and it's going to be a difficult season for them, I think, for sure.
Yeah, look, you kind of touched on some of the key players that are still at the club. I suppose they've retained, and look, mentioned Evan Weir, but those other players as well, such as Gary Digg and Ryan Brennan, even Darren Markey now is an experienced around the league. They're going to be crucial this season to Drogheda. I assume their goal is to stay up again in the Premier Division. Yeah,
and it's kind of important to mention that, like, they did hold on to a lot of really important players. They, the likes of Andrew Quinn, in particular, and Dean Williams, you felt we're always going to go. Keith Cowan did really well in the season that he was there, but he obviously was making a massive journey from Donegal, and he's gone back to Finn Harps, and Dane Massey as well has gone back to Bray. So yeah, they've kept Evan Weir, Dale Rooney, Emre Topku, who's a player they've got high hopes for, Ryan Brennan, as you mentioned, Gary Deegan and Darren Mark. Yeah, and Gary Deegan, even though he's 34 now, I think still such an important player for them. And Darren Markey, I mean, I think if you'd asked any League of Ireland supporter at the end of the season, which Drogheda player would you like to join your club, maybe outside of Derry and Shamrock Rovers, but even then, a lot of them would probably say Darragh Markey because he's been such a key player for Drogheda, and he's a funny one. I was looking at it last year, his stats. He didn't provide that many assists, but he provided the assist to the assist, if you get me. He was the third last player to touch the ball, and it was a little cute ball around the corner or down the line for someone to cross. So he was a really key player for them to keep, and I'm sure they'd be absolutely delighted to hold on to him. And then they've got Colin McCabe, who came in for the second half of last season after sitting on the bench for the first half of when Sam Long was there, and he did really well. He was really solid. So they've retained a really good spine. It's just how those new players coming in are going to settle in. And you know yourself in the league, you can't really afford to be settling in over 3, 4, 5 games at the start of the season. So they're going to need to bed in pretty quickly, I think, and that's going to be the challenge for Kevin.
I think they call it the pre-assist, David.
The pre-assist, is that it? Right. That's what the kids are saying now. I'll have to add that one to my list.
Yeah, I think it's the pre-assist to chat about. Yeah, no, it's an interesting time for them, I suppose. Like I kind of touched on it there a second ago. I suppose the main thing for Drogheda this season is going to be surviving. And can they look for a better than 8th place, or is 8th place realistically where they'd be hoping for this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very hard to know because we're talking about Drogheda here with players to bed in. There's lots of clubs in that situation, you look at Bohemians, you look at Sligo. We're not really sure what Cork are going to be like. UCD are obviously, a different model to most clubs, so it's not quite clear what sort of a team they're going to be able to put out, but they're always reasonably handy. So, yeah, like looking at them last year, I was just looking at it earlier. They were in 7th. They were 7th or 8th the whole season, with the exception of the first few weeks when I think they were 5th. But yeah, that's got to be the goal for them. Possibly like they don't want to finish bottom, but to get that automatic relegation. But 3rd from bottom would be a real achievement for them. Obviously 2nd from bottom, you're looking at a playoff, and then you don't know what's coming out of the first division. So yeah, I think 3rd from bottom for them would be great. A great achievement given the turnover in the squad and the players that are there. The one thing that I would say, if you look at the last couple of seasons, in 2021 they had 44 points and they scored 45 goals. In 2022 they had 38 points, so 6 points fewer, and they scored 34 goals, so 11 goals fewer, and that's less than 1 goal a game. So the numbers are going down in terms of the key sort of trends. Now I know it's not always just as simple as that, but their goal scoring record last year was really poor, and they only had 2 wins away from home. So and they really struggled on the road. But the goal scoring, I think, is going to be a real problem for them potentially, because they've lost Dean Williams, Chris Lyons, who'd been in the goals a little bit, not so much last season, but prior to that, of course. They still have Ryan Brennan, who scored quite a few of them last year, but Dean Williams is gone. So it looks like they're going to be relying on Freddie Draper, who's come in on loan, and Victor Arong, who's a young player as well, who I saw last year. He made his debut, I think it was against Sligo. He came on towards the end of that one, or possibly against Finn Harte. But he came in and he looked like a real live wire. But he's very young and very raw, and to be expecting someone so young to be able to deliver goals in the Premier Division to keep you up is probably a big ask. So where the goals are going to come from is what I would wonder. They're usually reasonably well set up defensively, and hopefully they will be again this season. But the goal scoring, I think, will be something that is probably giving Kevin a bit of cause for concern before the season.
Yeah, you mentioned Draper there. Have you seen much Freddie Draper yet? Only 19, young lad. I
haven't. He played in that Jim Malone Cup, and I was chatting to my colleague Adrian, who was at that game, and Drogheda won it on penalties. And he said that Draper looked quite good. That he was big, strong, physical guy, really quick. So if he can come in and hit the ground running. And again, I mentioned Sam Long in goals and Sean Rowan last year. Like, Sam Long put in some absolutely incredible performances. I remember one game against Bows where they were getting bet out the gate everywhere bar the scoreboard. I think they were only 1-0 down, and Sam Long pulled off a few miraculous saves. There was one shot that hit the bar, and in real time it just looked like it came off the bar and back in, but when you saw the replay, he got a fingertip to it. So Sam Long played as big a part in keeping Drogheda up last year as anybody else did. So him and Rowan were great. So if the two guys that come in from Lincoln again can do as well as those two lads, then they'll be doing all right. But Draper, from what I've heard, good, strong, physical, pacey fella. So let's hope he can get the goals to them. But we're all probably playing a little bit of a guessing game at this stage of the season for a lot of teams, aren't we? Because we just don't know how these new players are going to settle in. But the evidence from last season would suggest that they have a good thing going there with Lincoln, and hopefully the quality will be there again with those two lads that have come in on loan.
Yeah, one of the things Kevin Doherty spoke about in the league launch was the fact that themselves and UCD now are the only part-time teams left in the Premier Division. And again, kind of looking at maybe the squad, and that's probably one of the biggest hindrances to have now if they can't probably retain those players, especially if young players are coming in, other clubs in the league are sniffing around, they can track and pay the bigger wages. That's going to be a problem going forward if they can't continue on with a full-time model.
No, exactly. And I mean, as we talked about there at the end of, the season before last, where all those players departed and Kevin was able to bring guys in, a few lads from Shells that he knew from when they were younger. But it's difficult to do that year after year. I mean, we saw it with Finn Harps, let's say, for a while there, where they were bringing in a raft of players from all over Europe. And it worked out for them for a few years. But then last year, the quality of the guys they brought in just didn't seem to be as good as it had been previously. And they ended up obviously going down. So, yeah, the part-time thing is a big conundrum for them. And there's been talk, we were chatting off air about it, but there's been talk of a takeover and investment coming for a long time now. It must be a good, maybe not a year, but a good 6, 7, 8 months at this stage that there's been talk of investment or potential interest. I've spoken to Conor Hoy about it, the former chairman. Joanna Byrne is the chairperson now, I should say. Spoke to Conor about it several times. He spoke to Neil O'Riordan in the paper there recently as well. And again, it seems like it's more or less the sort of same story. Anytime there's an update on it, we've spoken to a few people, there is interest, but there's still nothing has happened, And I think when the season ended last year, Conor and Kevin were very hopeful that there would be money coming into the club quite soon after the season finished, and that they'd be able to tie down the key players to new contracts, get some new players in, have a bit of a bigger budget, because as I understand it, the budget this season is smaller than it was last year. So yeah, that talk of investment, which would allow them to go full time, has been floating around for a while, but it hasn't happened yet. So certainly I'd say it's a frustration for Kevin Doherty, because he's a young manager. He wants to build his reputation. He probably wants to go places with his career as well. So it's difficult for him to try and establish himself as a good young manager if he's hamstrung a little bit by what they can do. But as I said, he was able to bring lads in last year who did really well for them, and he's got a good eye for a player. He's got Darragh Doyle alongside him, who's a very astute operator as well. So I won't be writing Drogheda off at this stage of the season by any means. I'd like to see how these new guys do when they come in, and the evidence prior to the season would suggest that they usually pick up talented players. It's just a matter of whether they can settle down and hit the ground running relatively quickly.
And there's talks of a new stadium gone completely cold. I remember before they were talking about infrastructure and new training ground. Is that gone completely cold, that trail?
It's all tied up in the takeover talk, really. Like, I spoke to Mark Scanlon last week for the station, and we talked about Drogheda's stadium plans, because as you know, I'm sure, and as most people know, the FAI own the stadium. So there's a it's a complicated situation, I guess. But Mark Scanlon last week said to me that they're hoping to have some positive news on that front in the next few months. So we have to keep our eyes peeled on that one. It's still, again, it is probably still wrapped up a little bit in the takeover, because as much as Mark Scanlon sort of said that any of the money that the FAI have tied up in the stadium will go towards a new stadium, I hope I'm not misquoting him there, but they basically he made that kind of comment. So I would imagine, though, that and it's something that Conor Hoy has talked about, that any potential move to a new stadium would be, I would say, contingent on getting investment in. Maybe not 100% contingent on that, but certainly it would help. But as I said, Mark Scanlon did say that there'd be some news on that in the next few months. I know there's been talks going on with Louth County Council and everything for quite a while. So it's certainly not gone cold. And hopefully we'll have some positive news on that. Because I guess it's a chicken and egg situation. If they get to the new stadium, they have a bigger crowd coming in, bigger revenues. It's a more attractive proposition for families and everything to go to on a Friday night. Then maybe that can be the thing that kickstarts them. But look, we've heard so many new stadium stories around the league for many years now. So we'll not hold our breath in it. But look, if what Mark Scanlon said is true, then hopefully there'll be some news in the next few months on that.
Who do you think then is the player to watch this season for Drogheda?
Well, I mean, I suppose from the players that I've seen from last season, who maybe people wouldn't have seen much of. I mean, we know all about Gary Deegan, we know all about Ryan Brennan, Evan Weir, Dara Markey, but Victor Arong, as I said, the bit I saw of him last year when he came on in a few games towards the end of the season, really, really, really quick, was just buzzing around defenders, closing them down, making a nuisance of himself. He's not the tallest in the world, but he's really strong and really quick. So I think, given the lack of resources, I suppose one of the benefits is that Drogheda do get to blood these young lads. And if you're a young player coming through with Drogheda, like Emery Topku as well, you know, if you're a young player at Drogheda and you're 16, 17, 18 and you're making a name for yourself in the underage ranks, you're going to find yourself fast tracked through to the first team quite quickly. And as I said, Emre Topku, another one who played quite a bit last season and looks like a really classy midfielder, alongside Gary Deegan especially. The only thing actually, just to mention on that, one of the things I think they have a problem with Drogheda is they don't have anyone like Gary Deegan. Now, I know those sort of players aren't 10 a penny, but Mark Hughes was probably the closest thing they had to that last season. Unfortunately, he had to retire due to injury. So when Gary Deegan isn't there, they really, really miss him, and they don't really have anybody like him or anything close to being like him to cover when he's not there. But when he is there, and you have the likes of an Emre Topku alongside him, who's a classy footballer, I think Topku and Aaron could be two lads to watch this season. Andrew Wogan as well, a young keeper, made that penalty save in the Malone Cup. He'll be presumably on the bench, especially once they lose the other sub-keeper whose name is going out of my head at the moment, Fikra Padgel. He's gone to Forest Green Rovers in the summer. He's been loaned back to Drogheda in the meantime, but when he goes in the summer, we might see Andrew Wogan on the bench. But I'm going to say Arang and Topku might be the two players this season to make names for themselves from the youngsters.
So to summarise then, tough fight ahead, but not all doom and gloom?
No, not at all. I could never come on here and write them off, you know. Yeah, it's going to be a tough season. I think everybody knows that, and it was a tough season last season for them. But I do think that with the players that they've re-signed and then the guys that have come in, it's an obvious thing to say, but so much is going to depend on where they get the goals from. They're going to need goals probably from all over the pitch. They're going to need Ryan Brennan chipping in again. Adam Foley probably, you know, he suffered a bit with injury last year, but he's back again fit. He'll probably look to get among the goals this season. Didn't really score too many last year, but worked really hard and in fairness to him, was being played out in the wide kind of positions quite a bit and was coming in from the wing. But he did really well after last year, but would maybe hope to get a few more goals this season. But I think that's going to be the key thing for them. It is, as I said, it is an obvious thing to say, but their goal rate has been dropping for the last two seasons. And if it was to go any lower than it did last year when they only got 34 goals in 36 games, I think they'd be in serious trouble. So that's going to be the key thing for me. If the likes of Freddie Draper and Victor Arang, if he can make a breakthrough and get some goals, that'll be a key thing for them. But I'm gonna say Drogheda are going to survive the drop by hook or by crook. They're going to stay up.
Last question then, David. Great time. How do you see Friday night going? Opening day in Tadhg Park.
Yeah, and I was only there at the tail end of last season, and they were beaten out the gate 6-0. Now they were safe at that stage, but they were down to the bare bones, and that's the other thing with that squad. You know, towards the end of the season, I think they lost 5 out of their last 8 games, and 3 of those defeats came before they were safe. So the squad is thin enough. So when the end of the season came, they were running on empty a little bit. But look, first game of the season, Shells, I'd say it'll be a packed house at Tadhg Park after the season they had last year. Duffer and Kevin Doherty obviously had a little bit of a run in last year at United Park. I think they smoothed that out at Tadhg Park, so I think that's all good. But I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a really exciting game. And again, look, Drogheda will need to get their away form sorted out this season and improve on it from last year. It's going to be a tough one for them, but look, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they can pick up a point there and get their season off to at least not a losing start and go from there.
Score prediction then 0-0, is it?
Gonna go 1-1. Gonna go wild and say 1-1. Yeah.
Dave, great time. Thanks very much. We'll chat again soon.
Thanks a million, Luke. No worries.
Get in touch. You can email us at extratimelive@gmail.com or tag us on Instagram using the hashtag League of Ireland or tweet us at Extra Time News.
Let's do it. And welcome back to the final part. It's a long episode, Macdara.
We're still here. It's going to be a long season.
Yeah, well, look, we got a preview from all the clubs. That was our aim today on our preview show. We got a taste of what's happening in the division. Like we said at the top of the show, I think it's going to be a good season. Like, again, it's like the race for Europe looks quite good. We definitely have a race for a title this season. I think we'll touch on in a sec. And then even for the relegation battles, there's 3 or 4 teams that could go. Like, so it makes for a good season.
Yeah, I think. The interest is there. We've talked about kind of the good season ticket sales right across the league, and there'll be plenty of storylines and ones that'll just crop up that we won't even have thought of, because that's the League of Ireland.
Yeah. In terms of then, look, the title race. Look, we know the 2 teams that will be up there. There could be a surprise package. You never know, but it is going between Derry and Shamrock Rovers, and I suppose it's going to be the established club versus the new kids in the block. It depends which way you're leaning in terms of what team you go for.
Yeah, I think when we had this type of conversation last year, I probably thought that, maybe Dundalk and Pats would push, and they didn't really last year. And I think if you look at the recruitment over the season, I think Dundalk's in particular kind of haven't pushed on. So I do think it'll be a 2-horse race. And it was very tight between Shamrock Rovers and Derry in the games between one another last year. They played. It was 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw, because they played each other in the cup, and Derry won in the cup quarter-final. I think it was 3-1 after extra time. Rovers were on a 3-day turnaround from a game in Ghent. But if you looked at the President's Cup on Friday, I think Derry were definitely the better team, and they won 2-0, and they'll carry, they'll carry that bit of confidence into the new season, having, they've beaten Rovers last year. They know they can do it. They've recruited well, and then they've taken a bit of a scalp on the opening day of the season. Even though if it seems to, we'll class it as a friendly, because I see Rovers made 6 substitutes, so it must be classed as a friendly rather than they made 5. And they had, a couple of their younger players were playing wing backs there. But Derry were the better team. They won the game. They won the President's Cup, and they'll carry that little bit of momentum into the start of the season. So, it's a big ask for Shamrock Rovers going for 4 in a row, but that's a big prize that they're working towards. I don't think they'll buckle under that pressure. I think that's something that they'll aspire to do. I think we've heard the likes of Ronan Finn talk about that. The 4 in a row sides, that 1980s Rover side, many of them still around the club. There was 9 of them at the Soccer Rider Ireland dinner there after Christmas, and they're still very much fans of the club and they're around the club, and so the current crop of players want to match the likes of Pat Byrne. So yeah, that's certainly how I see the title race going. But there's loads of clubs that are looking to get into the European spot. We talked about, Jessica mentioned about the top 4. Obviously, 4th qualifies for Europe. That's what Pat's got. Only if someone above you wins the cup. So it can be only top 3, depending on what way the cup has gone. But traditionally, in recent years, the 4th place has been Europe, because generally it's been Shamrock Rovers or Dundalk that have won the cups over recent seasons.
Yeah, this is our first episode since the final, so I want to thank Derry City for winning the cup and getting Pats into Europe. I should mention that. So I'm going to guess you're going to go for Shamrock Rovers win the league anyway. You're going to go for another win.
Yeah, I think so. Like, the easy answer is to go, 4 in a row, but it's been a bit flippant when you see, just Adam O'Reilly. I think it's just a super acquisition for Derry, and I think Colin Whelan, when he gets back fit and in the team, is brilliant as well, and everyone around the league wants to see that, because this is a player that'll probably go far. Were you surprised Collie Whelan went to? Were you surprised Collie Whelan went to Derry? Because I know more about obviously the link with Rovers. It looked like it was always going to happen. Then the injury came. Yeah, I think. Well, anytime I went to Belfield to see UCD, there was generally Stephen McPhail was there and Stephen Bradley. I just don't know what the situation was with the injury. Like, he's still recovering, and I'm not saying the Rovers went, oh no, we don't want to sign him, but maybe the view was that actually he just wanted to see where he was in relation to recovery. A lot of the time, players that League of Ireland clubs, some of the best League of Ireland players in the league, have come back from England where they've kind of had a serious enough injury, and they're looking to come back. So, there's plenty of times that clubs will sign players who, are coming back from injury. But I thought he was more likely to go to a team in England than go to Derry City. I suppose that's what probably surprised me when I saw that he'd signed for Derry City. Yeah, well, that's why I'm tipping Derry to win the league this year. I think this is the year that someone's going to break the Rovers 4 in a row. Yeah. I think Derry are going to go for it. I just think it'd be interesting. Like, they've done, especially the back end of last season, they seem to finish the season strong, and they carry that momentum into this season. It'd be interesting
Race for Europe then, who are your three teams you think off the top of your head? I've gone for Rovers, Pats and Dundalk again in that order.
Sorry, you've talked about Sligo Rovers?
Shamrock Rovers. Shamrock Rovers.
Okay,
second.
but sorry, you're talking about so the teams for Europe then. Sorry, so runners up in the league.
Yeah. Pats will come third. I'm going to decent season again, and I've gone with Dundalk to come fourth. A coin tossing them in Sligo really, but I've gone with Dundalk.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear the view on Sligo, just the number of players that they've brought in. I think I mentioned I haven't been overly impressed with Dundalk's recruitment. Probably similar with Shell. So no, I think Pats will get a European spot under their own right this year, if I can say that.
Mm. So you're going to, I imagine you're going to have Derry then. You're going to have Pats.
Derry, Pats, and Pats or Dundalk for third place. Well, I better go Pats because I said they've been on their own steam, and Dundalk in fourth.
Okay, so we're going for a similar. Actually, we're going for the exact same top four. Just I have Derry top and you.
Yeah.
Shamrock Rovers first. Relegation then. Look, I think
UCD.
I've gone for UCD. I think we all went that last year. And then it depends who gets the playoff spot. I've gone for Drogheda just simply because they're part-time. I know that's kind of harsh, but I think that could be a key factor. And I'm just even talking to Dave Sheehan and Iran, just in terms of the signings and the upheaval again with the squads. While they have kept one or two crucial players, just losing a lot of players there, lack of goals last season, doesn't bode well made for this season.
Yeah, and they've lost Dane Williams has gone to Bohemians, so that they've lost another bit of an attacking threat. Yeah, so we're both in agreement there. Drogheda then to come ninth in the playoff. Yeah, it's how Cork City are going to do. If they can start strong, it'll be big crowds back at Turner's Cross because they're in the Premier Division, and they need to be getting some results just to make sure that the crowds keep coming back week in, week out. I think Colin Healy is an excellent manager, but it's a big step up to the Premier Division. And as Dylan said, the players that have come in does sound like they're not going to have that goalkeeper for too long, which is which has destabilized other clubs where I think Pat's had that with losing goalkeeper halfway through the season again when a player on. Joseph Nang went back to West Ham to go to Derby. But it's actually funny because I've seen the goalkeepers is actually just in the hair. Mark McNulty actually just retired this year. 41, 42 I think it was. Yeah, he was he was still going strong. So and of course Cork City lost David Harrington, who's gone to the UK as well. Very highly regarded goalkeeper again, player who we may see getting senior international honours if he can continue the trajectory of people who've seen him play and seen just how talented a player he is. Yeah, your player to watch then for the season gone by your article you mentioned earlier on, Justin Ferris. Yeah, but I think he may go in the summer. Okay, and it's whether the European season or the European only campaign kicks in after that point. Does he feel that staying at Rovers and maybe hoping that he can contribute to Rovers getting to group stage football, that'll put him in an even bigger shop window, if that's the right metaphor. We saw that with Andy Lyons, who was excellent before Rovers got to Europe as well, but got to move to the UK, whereas before that, Danny Mandreu went before Rovers went to Europe, so he went when the window opened. Having scored 7 goals, he was top scorer for Rovers for quite some time in the season until towards the end when Graham Burke I think ended up with 11 in the league and Rory Gaffney 10. So, but I think certainly a player to watch. But I mentioned Adam O'Reilly with Derry City. I think he'll be definitely a player to watch as well. I really enjoyed watching him play previously in the league. I think he's a super signing by Rory Higgins. Yeah, I've already mentioned earlier on, my player to watch hopefully this season be Ben McCormack with my Pat's hat on, because like I said earlier on the piece, that in terms of he's always been talked about the club and he's always shown glimpses of potential, and hoping this is season 8 breaks through, because we're going to need another player, like I said, that has that creative spark, and I think he has it. From outside Pat's,
I'm actually looking forward. I mentioned it around with Dylan. I'm actually looking forward to watching Barry Coffey play because a lot of talk about our youth international.
Yeah,
like from the clips I've seen online, looks very, very good, technically gifted. So he'd be a player to watch maybe this season. I'm just looking forward to. Yeah, I think when he wrapped up, I was the last thing to mention maybe LOI TV. That's quite a it's come back again this year.
It's great to have it back. Like I watched a fair number of games last year where I would have ponied up the €7 to watch a few games. If I was a few Friday night games or if games were, I was going to a game of the weekend and watch something else. But so it's €120 for they even threw in the President's Cup. Although I had a long week last week, I have to admit I did fall asleep. Shamrock Rovers was 2-0 down. I did fall asleep. I missed the end of the game. But it's great to have because on TV I could have gone back and watched the end of it last Friday. But I think it gives you all the Premier Division games, all the First Division games, and all the Women's Premier Division games as well. And if people don't want to buy it, you can still buy the individual matches. I think it's still €7 for the Premier Division, but encourage people if they can get it. It's well worth. It's well worth to get, particularly if it's great for for away games if you can't make a game that you can get to it. But even just for us who are kind of a good interest right across the league, it's great to be able to watch other teams play. And then it's also very helpful for those of us in the press box to have LOI TV because it means we can get some replays. It's generally about kind of 40 seconds delay if you're watching at a game. So you want to see maybe who got the assist from a goal that you're a bit unsure of. Having LOI TV is very, very handy to have in the press box. Where I wouldn't have bought individual games last year, but I've paid my €120. So that'll be helpful. Hopefully give us better reports for all our readers on extratime.com.
Speaking of the press box, are you in the press box this weekend?
No, I'm gonna. There's a good few Friday night games, so I'm in Extratime HQ on Friday night to help with updating. It's great. We've recruited a few new reporters over the off season, so just to get reports up online quick enough and doing some updates. I'll probably do some updates on one of the games. I'll try and decide what one to do. And no, traveling down, as I mentioned, I have an away ticket. Got one of the 500, I think, away tickets for the showgrounds on Saturday night. So looking forward to first away trip of the season.
What's Johnny Kenny's debut?
Yeah, it'll be really good because I've seen him at a couple of the preseason friendlies, and he has scored a couple of good goals. Rovers played virtually all their preseason friendlies. Yeah, because the Leicester Cup game was a competitive game against UCD. They played them in Roadstone because Tala isn't available, and they put the clips up online. They have it's not CCTV, but they have cameras that they use that they can watch back training and they can use for clips. So they put a couple of I think they put all the goals up, but Johnny Kenny's goals, certainly the couple of games that I was at against Luke and against Bray, he got a couple of really good goals. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. And just when we were talking to with Jessica, she was just describing what kind of character he is. I haven't spoke to him generally. I'll get to talk to players for Shamrock Rovers match program during the year and after games. So it's not someone I've talked together, but he sounds like he's got his head on his shoulders. So it'll be interesting to see how Saturday night goes, because I think Friday night the Cork City Bows game is the one that's live on Harte, I think, and everything else is available on LOI TV.
Yeah, and there's been a small increase actually in games on TV this year, isn't there? I'm pretty sure. I think I saw.
I think so, but there's still a big gap between games. Yeah, I know. And really I think RT do a pretty good service. Some people would be more disparaging than that, but really we haven't filled the gap that was there where they came in and did games on a regular basis. TG Carr will be doing a number of the Women's Premier Division games live, which is great as well. But it's a pity Virgin do the Europa League, do the Europa Conference League, and they don't cross the road to do League of Ireland, which is a real shame.
Come on, let's just be positive. First episode, the preview episode. Come on, let's stay positive. Stay positive, okay? Just positive vibes. Well,
maybe they'll swoop in the middle of the season and do that and prove me wrong.
Yeah. A quick run to the fixture then in the Premier Division. We've already mentioned, we'll go through them one more time. Shells face Drogheda United, Pats face Derry City, Dundalk UCD, Cork City Bows, and on Saturday night we have Sligo Rovers and Shamrock Rovers. The LOI season is back, McDara.
Great. We wouldn't have it any other way. Another season to look forward to. And nothing beats the optimism of the opening game of the season. I know there's pessimists out there, but everyone loves the opening game of the season because it's uncharted territory, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, well, maybe this might be my club season, and it'll be a bit different come 10 o'clock on Friday night for some people, but no, enjoy the games that people are going to on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, 100%. Make sure get out to a game, whatever game it is, get out and support the league. Thanks to all the guests today. Big bumper episode to start the season. McDara, thanks as always, and we'll chat to you all next week.